Wow.
Welcome to The Line. It's the show that you have now tuned into. You didn't have to be here, but you are here, and you're watching this right now. So, in a way, this is all your fault, too, and we share in that. I'm Forrest Valkai, and I am joined today by the incredible Dr. Roxanne. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing amazing, and that little dance of yours really like brought this to life. Wow.
Thank you. That's what it was all for. It's the only dancing I do is at the beginning of these shows. We've got a great show for everybody tonight. I wanted to host with you again for a long time anyway, because I always love having you on. Our audience always loves when you're on. For everybody who doesn't know, I'm going to let you introduce yourself here in a minute. But first, just a brief overview is you just finished your doctorate in social psychology not too long ago. And you are working on some incredibly important and very cool research that I want to hear about more.
Correct.
We also... we always open lines for theists if people want to call in and talk about theism, if people want to talk about creationism. I'm a biologist. I would love to talk to you about evolution. But today specifically, we have chosen to do this because we're in a bit of a pickle right now as a country because the fascist cult leader that is currently the president has passed an executive order deciding that sex and gender are just wrong things that don't matter. Truly like a sixth grade understanding of how these things work, blasted out as if it were divine freaking revelation. The law makes no sense. And since then, we have also now been rolling back like funding and even like ability to do research. We were talking about this before the show, that like the CDC, among other agencies, now have to retract any publication in any journal that includes words like woman or LGBT or trans or sex assigned at birth. And now the NSF is instructed to automatically reject any grant application that includes words like woman or female. And so it goes so far beyond just not liking trans people. It really is just hating anything that goes outside of the very strict parochial norm of like 1940s America, where women didn't exist and nobody knew what a gay person or a trans person was. And if they did, they were just somebody that they just burned at the stake or whatever it is. So just, it's a bad time to be an American, especially if you know how to read. And we're here to talk about it a little bit. So we're going to have a really cool show because we have opened the line specifically of, as always, theists are welcome to call in, but we're especially interested in people who have questions about sex and gender, especially if you think that science is wrong about all of this and that actually sex and gender are synonymous and binary. It's going to be a wild show. We're going to watch transphobes try to think live on air. It's going to be great. But before we get into that, Roxanne, please tell us about yourself so we all know who we're talking to.
Yeah. I don't know how I can even compete with all of that. Wow. Yeah. So I think I've been on, this is my third time maybe. And I probably came on for the first time right after I finished my master's, I want to say. And then I think the last time I was on was right before I was finishing up my PhD, which was last May. So I have a PhD in social psychology, which just as like a rundown, some people think they get sociology, social psychology, social work kind of mixed up. Social psychology is the study of thoughts, behaviors, emotions as they're influenced by social situations. And specifically, my area of expertise is on gender prejudice, gender stereotypes, how we construct a sense of self and identity. Right now, I'm working at a university doing some really cool research specifically on LGBTQ students navigating the high school to college transition and how they develop a sense of college-going identity, do a lot of work on sexual harassment, a lot of work looking at what motivates men to engage in hostile behaviors against women, how they handle things like sexual rejection. So just a bunch of stuff that spans the realm of gender and sex.
So literally the perfect fucking co-host for this particular show, especially, is what we're saying. Like this, it's everything we need. She could do it by herself, but we need a man here. Like it's going to be great. I am actually,
gotta be balanced.
It's funny. I'm currently finishing. I did a second master's because I'm very stupid, and I am in the last semester of that. And I was actually looking into it, and I found out that I'm only about 3 semesters away from a bachelor's in psychology as well. And I thought it would be really cool to get that, because then as soon as I have a bachelor's in psychology, people will start tagging me in your comment section asking if what you're saying is real. And that'll be
Forrest,
a lot of fun.
is this true? Tell us. We need a real scientist perspective.
Did I tell you about the time? There's this awesome creator named Chemical Kim. And she is a PhD chemist who does this amazing chemistry content. And she was doing this demonstration of the Leidenfrost effect, where you can like pour liquid nitrogen on your hand. And as long as you're doing it quickly and not consistently, your hand will be totally fine. You won't even barely feel it because you have this thin vapor that's protecting your hand from the extreme temperature difference. And so she's showing this. PhD chemist demonstrating the thing. And someone tags me and is like, is this real? And I'm like, she is so much more qualified than me. And showing you with your own eyes, you can see this. Why did you need me to tell you? It's just great, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty much my experience. That's my experience. Yeah, it's bleak.
Yep.
Or I'll be talking about like gender prejudice. I'm like, people don't take women seriously. People don't believe women's qualifications. And like in a video about that, they'll be like, oh, I need to tag a man. I need to know. And I'm like, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great of you to say. Wasn't there something random? It was some viral post of like some dimwit saying something about like bitches with PhDs or something. And it's like all these stupid.
That is me.
Yeah. All these stupid women have to go out and get PhDs to act like they're smart. And it's like, dude, like, what?
Let me hold your hand while I tell you this. Those women, they're smart.
It's so funny, the lengths to which men will go to pretend like they're not so fragile. To say like your accomplishments, your achievements, everything about you is somehow fraudulent because you hold an opinion or a position that they personally don't enjoy. And then they're going to pretend like they have some sort of objective standard for like what is good or intel. And it's so funny to watch. It's so funny to watch. It kills me. I've been lumping in it's like being misogynistic is one thing, but when you have like these outdated ideas of like, man, the hunter and provider, and like, women are always barefoot and pregnant and all these things, like that kind of thing where you're like so ignorant on anthropology and just like ethnography of the world in general. You know what I mean? I've been lumping that kind of thinking in with the same kind of science denial as I lump transphobia and flat earthers and anti-vaxxers and creationists together, because like really it's okay if you don't get it. It's okay if you don't know the data. It's so okay if you haven't studied this. Not everybody has to study this. It's fine. Biologists are fucking weird, y'all. You don't need to be like us. But don't start spewing strong ass opinions about things that you haven't even read past 6th grade. Just don't do it. There's a reason why I don't get on here and talk about computers. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I know. I stay in my lane. My lane. I know when someone else knows more than me.
Yeah.
How hard is it?
It's not. It's just super not. Super not. We've got 4 people waiting on the line right now, and as I've been speaking to you, I was kind of waiting for the lines to fill up a little bit more, but like I keep looking over here, and I just want to let you know, we have already had 3 people who were already banned try to call in, and we've had 4 people that I've watched pop up saying sex is binary or whatever, and then they drop. They get like through screening, and then they can't wait. They can't hold on to it for more than like 10 seconds. But whatever, we're gonna go into it. Usually we prioritize theist callers, and we still mostly will, but because we're here to mainly talk about sex and gender, we're going to mix it up a little bit. So you'll see some atheists and some theist callers mixed in throughout the show, kind of interspersed. So if you call in, you may be on hold for a while, but stick around because we're going to try to take as many calls as we can. Let's start. If you're ready to start, if you're into it.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Into it.
Bring it on.
We have there's a fan run account called Quote the Line that's on like Threads and stuff. And they just take like their favorite quote from every show and just post that. And my favorite one, but the one that I'm probably proudest of was the first time you were on, and the quote for that week was, "Are you into tapeworms, Roxanne?" And I'm so happy.
No, I'm getting the visual again. Oh, that was the worst thing
Oh,
ever when you.
Roxanne, by the way, Roxanne loves
No,
tapeworms. She agrees with me that they're really cute and really cool. And so
no,
find her work email and send her pictures of tapeworms and say love Forrest at the bottom.
don't do
Let's talk
that.
to let's talk to Grace, pronoun she, her, calling in all the way from the frozen, barren wastelands of Canada, who wants to talk about trans people and ask if being transgender is a mental health issue. Let's talk to Grace. You're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
Hi, good yourself?
Never had a bad day.
Hello? Oh, okay. Hi. So I don't imagine this will be a very long call. I was kind of having a conversation with another trans friend of mine, and we were disagreeing on this subject.
Okay.
Well, she said it's not a mental health disorder or illness, whatever.
Right.
But when I look up the definition, I get health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these. And at least in my experience, I find, gender dysphoria certainly impacted my emotion, thinking, and behavior. And I don't know, I'm just trying to quantify that, I guess. I also look it up on Google, and it'll say no, transgenderness is not a mental health issue.
Right. Roxanne, do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
You kick it off. I'm working on verbalizing my thoughts.
Yeah. So I would say the main thing to remember is that, obviously gender is a mental thing. There's you are perceiving yourself. And so like it is associated with your mental health. But things like gender dysphoria, that is a mental health issue. That is something you are struggling with and suffering from that is causing a problem in your life that you can then seek treatment for. But while that is related to being trans, that is not the same thing as being trans. Not all trans people experience gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria presents itself in different ways. Sometimes it abates with puberty. Sometimes it's much worsened by puberty. Sometimes it goes away on its own at a certain point. So it varies. So when you talk about this, it's important to not confuse the presentation of issues that come along sometimes with being trans, or that some trans people experience, and associate that back as a necessarily part of being trans in the first place, and say trans people or being transgender therefore is the mental disorder issue or whatever like that. That's what I would say about it. I think that's the fundamental distinction that I would make, because no, being trans is not a mental health issue. It is just a state of being.
Okay.
What do you think, Roxanne?
So, yeah.
I think that makes sense. I'm trying to think if there's anything more to add. I obviously I'm approaching this as someone who has never experienced gender dysphoria, so it's hard for me to say this is how it happens. But I would say, first of all, if we're going off of Google definitions or the DSM, you have to think about the perspective of the people who are in charge of sharing that information. I wouldn't say something's a mental illness because Google says so, right?
Right.
Lots of things have been considered mental illnesses over time because those groups of people were oppressed. So it certainly, I would say, the definition that you read about, this experience that involves emotions and feelings and thought patterns and stuff, that's true. That's the same with, anxiety, any type of emotional mood state has patterns of thoughts, behaviors, emotions, feelings. And I think a lot of that for trans folks is exacerbated because they're prevented from being able to just do the things that would help alleviate those negative mood states. So is the, mental illness or simply negative experiences, is it because of them, or is it because they live in a hostile world that makes it hard for them to be who they want to be?
Okay. So if I can quantify this in a few sentences, then would it be safe to say then that so it's not being trans isn't the mental illness that can cause gender dysphoria because of societal expectations and just general transphobia, and that's what causes gender dysphoria. I mean, that's not what causes gender dysphoria, but that can lead to symptoms of mental illness.
I feel like that could be. I mean,
I'm not
I feel
good at
strange,
words,
like trying to give like a definition because it's different for everyone, and I am not trans, so you know.
I think the thing to remember is that like not all trans people experience gender dysphoria, and it also is highly variable in how it is presented, when it is presented, and how it is treated and how it is abated. And so like, yeah, I think your summary is pretty, from what I remember, it was pretty okay. It's just like, being trans is just a state of being. Being trans is not a mental disorder. Being trans is not some issue. You just are, or you aren't. And that's what it is. The way that you then interact with your own body and the way that you experience the world around you, often the way that the world around you treats you, can then cause potential complications or not. Because again, highly variable presentation, highly variable morbidity at all. And so like that's where I think the disconnect would need to come in, is like, if someone's experiencing these symptoms, that tells you about how they're perceiving themselves. It may or may not also tell you something about like how the world is treating them, how their family and friends are treating them, how inclusive, how supportive their social network is. Like, those are things you can then potentially go back and like try to draw some connections to. But the morbidity of the condition isn't it is not a ubiquitous thing. It's not always going to present the same. So especially for that reason, more than anything else, trying to relate it back to this necessary part of being trans, or trying to pathologize transgender identities and say like, this is the cause of that, and this is now the thing that needs to be treated. This is the disease, and dysphoria is the symptom. You know what I mean? That is, that's a major problem, and that dangerous. I would say it's not only dangerous, but it's also just it's not really how the logic of the whole situation works. But I appreciate you asking us, because this is the kind of thing that's super common questions. So I really appreciate you bringing it up and giving us the time to poke at it.
Yeah, I appreciate you going through that with me. And it does kind of fit, because in hindsight, my definition, I think, kind of probably clicks more for internalized transphobia gained from, just again, societal stuff, what you see on TV, what you hear other people say about trans people. Yeah. So I appreciate that. I that answer. I get it a bit better.
And if you'd like to poke at that, if you'd like to deal with that a little bit, the internalized transphobia and everything, we have a great show called TACIS, the Transatlantic Call-In Show. We have ensnared some trans people, and we forced them to do shows for us. Oh, great. Perfect. Yes. I would call, because I bet you anything. Well, the reason I called here is I can't. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, you get the opportunity to talk to us. That's totally fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah. I tried the last 2 weeks, and Arden suggested calling next time I see somebody here. She said she does it sometimes. She mentioned you, actually, Forrest.
Oh, shit.
I have seen a few of your videos yelling at trans people. I love it.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you calling in, and I hope everything works out for you. Call us and keep us up to date on your journey, okay?
Thank you very much. Okay. Have a good day.
Take care, Grace. Bye-bye.
Bye, Grace.
Bye.
What a nice way to start the show.
Yeah.
By the by, if anybody's watching this and you have other questions than beyond what we talk about here, the Transatlantic Call-In Show is a dope show, like, objectively speaking. And if you see Dr. Ben, tell him that he's a big old butt or something. I don't know. Just tell him I said hi. He and I were talking about doing a thing later on, and I want to make some cool content with that guy. We've got Emma Grace, pronouns they and she, calling in from Sniffin' Creatures, who is a theist who wants to know, from a social psychology perspective, what the ramifications of removing more women and gender nonconforming people from federal workplaces and studies or publications will be in regards to gender-based violence. We were literally just talking about this before the show. Yeah, Emma Grace, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How you doing?
I was doing fine until your tapeworm comment. It made me reminisce on the times I've caught mango worms. So thank you and screw you. For
Are
that
you into
discrimination.
tapeworms? They're great.
No.
They're cute.
But anyways, Dr. Felig.
Hi.
I really enjoy your work, and I know you've done a lot of research regarding women's objectification and violence, and a lot of gender-based violence, which could be prevented by like actually using a feminist lens, already falls by the wayside systemically because women still aren't, prioritized in leadership or decision making, or funding goes to one particular part of a project but isn't implemented across the whole system working on it. Like, I know the rates of success in reducing sexual assault and gender-based violence go up when women are involved, and have organizationally wide feminist approaches, according to, I think it's Advancing Gender Transformative Localization, but it's been years since I looked at that, so don't trust me. But given the current admin's more, I guess you could say, more open hostility towards women and people who don't conform to their supposed cultural gender norms, how do you think this will impact the South's already systemic gender-based violence, or even the ability to mostly accurately address it and educate people about it? Like, I've got guesses, but I really want a psychological perspective from someone who knows more than me.
This question, oh man, I feel like this is the question that I've been asking myself, like as I navigate a job where what I do is study violence against women. And it's really scary. I mean, and so there's so many levels to it, right? There's the erasure from research. So we're not able to include the perspectives of participants in studies who are not men. We're not able to, we're not able to include those experiences in shaping the narrative of how these processes are even impacting women and non-binary folks and trans people, right? Like, that's just, we're not going to have the data to support it. Even if we had the data, we're not going to have people in positions anymore to interpret the data and put it into a policy change, or, some type of actual process that might benefit equity. Oh, the cursed word, equity. So there's all these levels where, like, there's going to be this systemic erasure, this systemic silencing of experiences. I mean, we've seen this for a while in like biomedical research, right? Which typically does not like include samples of women. They'll just assume that like they test something on a man and they're like, cool, it's going to work the same for women. And then it doesn't. And then women have all these fucked up side effects from shit because they're like, I just assume you're a little man. And so we just give you less of whatever drug. And we see like that hurts women, that kills people. And I feel like that's a good like example of a microcosm of how this is going to like trickle down and play out in the bigger picture. Is like, we're not going to be included. Maybe people will assume like that, I don't know, some research on men in leadership will like will be the same for women, but like the women aren't even going to be there for us to test it out with. My overall assessment is that it's going to be really, really, really bad. But like, I can't even try to verbalize like specifics because it's just going to be in everything. Like, I keep thinking about how this is going to affect like young girls who are growing up now, who are not going to be able to see, information about them in textbooks, in schools. They're not going to be learning what they need to learn to see role models in fields to help them have aspirations to pursue those careers. Like, it's going to create this generation of excluded people who aren't men. And I can't even begin to think about like the downstream consequences of that over the next like 15, 20 years. I think, it's just bad. I don't know if like you have specific like outcomes that you want to chat through, but like, it's just from every angle, it's just bad.
Yeah, no, I've worked with reducing sexual assault and gender-based violence in different areas, but it's always been in countries that have been kneecapped already by fascism or colonialism and stuff like that. And so it's really difficult seeing the descend here. And I guess another thing keeping in mind is like how much male allyship is there going to be? Well, I guess more male accomplice is probably the better language to make the work actionable, but how much male allyship besides Forrest, I guess, are you seeing?
It's funny. There actually is like a little bit about this that we can already infer from where we already are. Like I agree with Roxanne. It's going to get real bad. And we can say that because it's already pretty bad. So like, take, for example, the fact that women are statistically like very much significantly more likely to be killed or injured in a car crash. And you're like, why? What could be causing going on? Are they just fragile? Like, what's happening? No, it's because when we were testing we have crash test dummies to see how people are going to be hurt. And we base those crash test dummies off of like just kind of average male frames. We didn't start using like smaller crash test dummies to represent women until 2011. And mind you, I said smaller dummies. I didn't say based off of average women. They just took the men and made them a little smaller. So the weight distribution is all wrong and they're still not tested properly. And so to this day, women are like something is like it's in the 70s, like 70 something % more likely to be injured and some percentage more likely to be killed in a car crash. You can also look at menstrual products like tampons, pads, and whatnot. Do you know, Emma Grace, you may know, but do you know when or what year menstrual products were first tested in a laboratory settings with actual blood? Yeah.
Like 4 years ago.
That was very recently. In the last 5 years.
It was 2023. It was 2023. Yeah.
Yep.
So like the reason why you need to buy supers all the fucking time is because those things are designed to absorb water, which scientifically speaking isn't fucking blood. And so like it just doesn't work the same way. Medical testing, Roxanne brought up, it wasn't until the 1990s, I want to say, that medical testing was like regularly done, including women in clinical trials and shit.
And I think the one office for women's health hosted within the NIH has already gone dark. So like goodbye to that one singular office that was responsible for doing like the sliver of research that would otherwise look at these things.
It just sucks. And so like these when we talk about like how is it gonna be, like look at the gap that we have in data and knowledge and representation and productivity and the way things are produced today. And like that's how it's going to be. Just worse that. It's going to be the same thing as that, only like as it was in the 1940s rather than the 2010s. You know what I mean? That's what I see. And also one last thing, and then I'll shut the fuck up. Roxanne, you mentioned biomed. My second master's is in biomed. That's what I'm super into. And I was just a couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk at the biomed department at the place where I did that at OSU CHS. About sex and gender being non-binary and about better guidelines for communication and research and like how to figure this out. And one of the questions was from one of the professors in the audience, and he was like, hey, I agree with everything you're saying here, but like how do we put this in our data? Like if we're measuring this, we measure a population of 100 people, maybe one of them, maybe 3 in a really crazy circumstance is going to be intersex, is going to be trans, is going to be whatever. I can't account for that in the data in a reasonable way. So what do I do? And the kind of the conclusion we came to is just like, you just put in one sentence in your research saying, we're doing this stats under the assumption that sex is a binary, or we're doing it in this model, using the synonymous model or whatever like that. Which is what I did in my first master's. I was studying fucking deer. And so no way I'm going to check if these deer are trans or intersex. That doesn't make any sense. And especially I just have their jawbones anyway. So I know, and well, what they, I got male or female. It's all the data that I had. And so I just put a single sentence in my method section saying they were organized by demographically this way. assuming a male or female binary. And just including that as saying, hey, we're making this assumption, at least keeps things honest enough to say, I know that isn't reality. I'm using a model here. And I think that is a great way, maybe, that scientists could continue to kind of operate in reality while getting around this kind of legislation restriction a little bit. But flip, dude, if you can't say, we were talking before the show, like, because you're not allowed to use words like women and female and stuff in your grant applications, you can include that sentence and then make sure to say, males and non-male persons. That'll be your dichotomy. That'll be your binary that you have to do stats under.
Right. Yeah. The examples you were bringing up about crash test dummies and stuff, there's so many, but I want to plug the book Invisible Women, which maybe you've read, but for anyone who's listening, if you're like, wow, that's crazy, never heard about that. Invisible Women, the subtitle is Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. Yep. Great book. Yep. Highly recommend reading it. You will be floored.
It's horrifying.
I think when you think about it from a psychological perspective, it's going to impact everyone, not just minoritized gender groups, but like men who are going to have reinforced beliefs because they're only interacting with stuff that serves them and people who look like them, that like they are the ones who belong. And that's just going to create a downward spiral that, I can't wait. I'm so happy.
Is like pushing for underground, like intersectional education the way to go? When after, of course, you call your representatives and protest and all that.
Right. That's always the way to go. But like, I don't know about like on a massive scale.
Yeah. You can't even, I'm in Florida, you can't even use the word intersectional here. So like, we have to figure out ways to operate in these confines that we find ourselves in. And I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I spent a few years in Florida's belly button, and it nearly killed me twice. So I feel for you.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
That's the worst way I've heard of that place referred to. And I don't want to think about it. Thank you, Emma Grace. Florida's fucking belly button. Jesus Christ. So
no.
Behave thing. I'm trying to fix the chat. There we go.
I do feel like I am nothing but a ball of lint in the belly button that is Florida, getting just tossed around.
Are you in Florida as well?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus of Christland, girl. I thought you were safe. Oh, it's terrible. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm like,
oh my God.
I know.
I'm in Oklahoma.
Specifically about
I thought I was having a bad time.
Look, Oklahoma, I can't say I'd rather be there. But it's not good here. And I mean, what's interesting is, I've been doing this type of research in Florida State universities for the last 8 years. And even prior to this administration coming in, we were getting a taste of this censorship under DeSantis, right? We had to change the way that we were delivering core classes. We weren't able for like any core curriculum to include anything related to diversity. We weren't allowed to do things like making people feel guilt or shame for the actions of previous generations. We weren't allowed to talk about like anti-racism or anything. So I feel like I've been getting slowly eased into this where I'm like, okay, I need to find ways, especially as an educator, to continue having these conversations with people in ways that don't get me shot. So this to me, I'm like, I knew this was coming, but it's still, it just stings. And like, it's come so fast the last like 4 weeks. It's been literally a month. And the speed at which science and research and education have been just drastically changed over the last month is insane. And I don't think anyone really has a solid plan of how to like where to go from here, especially because I mean, we're not done. Like more shit's going to keep happening. I don't know what they're going to cut next. Who knows? But we'll figure it out. I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever happens.
That's
Whatever
me convincing myself.
Was it not the great American poets Incubus who once said, "Whatever tomorrow brings, I'll be there."
That's it.
Yeah, last time I called in, we were talking about compassion fatigue. And I actually had a comrade at Food Not Bombs last weekend. I think it was last weekend, who's also queer and disabled. And we were discussing Audre Lorde's quote about self-care being an act of political warfare, and written when she was like going through cancer treatment, but still needing to fight for rights and for community. And that was really helpful for me to hear in light of all of this individualized imperial Western colonial concept of self-care that most regular people are recommending right now and can't afford, and doesn't even help that much with all the empire shit. So, but that is an incentive to prioritize proper rest for betterment of the rest of communities. At the end of the day, the system's designed to not care, so it's a fuck you to imperialism, to rest and ration the energy while waiting for tomorrow. Yeah.
I genuinely don't remember if I told you this last time, but when we were talking about compassion fatigue, but like just in case I didn't, and also just for now, one of the only ways that I am able to get to sleep a lot of the time is by convincing myself that it is a job and that I will be more effective if I do, and I can be better if I sleep now. This is work to help me be more effective at work later. And like, I feel like any kind of resting or self-care, thinking about it in that framework, I am now going to take the time to relax, because doing so is going to refresh my brain so I can be more empathetic to the people who need it, and I can stick a middle finger up to the man, figuratively and literally in this case. Then I think that is great incentive and motivation to fucking chill out every now and then. And I feel like if people are like me, maybe that'll help. Love that idea. With that, Emma Grace,
I don't want to take
I appreciate your call. No, you're fine. I appreciate your call as always. We're going to jump on to another one, but thank you so much, as always, for calling in and talking to us about important shit.
Thank you for that question. That was great.
Thanks, y'all.
Take care, Emma Grace. Bye-bye. She's always awesome.
Yeah, that's a great question, but I was like, ugh.
It's a lot, right?
It hit me. I'm like, oh no.
We were talking before the show. You said you were specifically working on like gendered violence right now, like as your research area. So like,
I sure am.
Yeah, it's rough. Hey, by the way, don't you have a YouTube channel or something like that?
I do. As of last month, it's kicking off. I can't say that I'm posting there a whole ton yet, but I do have a YouTube channel set up. If anyone wants to find me there, it is my username there is Naya Papaya, NAIA_PAPAIA. Can't put it in the YouTube chat because it's subscribers only mode. But if you want to hear me yap about science from a feminist lens, how drinking oat milk makes you gay, and any other random shit, find me on YouTube.
Dr. Roxanne just confirmed that she's not subscribed to the line, and fuck you, I guess. That's whatever. I thought we were friends.
Okay,
but that's fine.
Let me just tell you,
cool. It's so cool. It's so cool.
I just made this YouTube account a month ago, and I haven't been on anything. I posted like
just hasn't gotten around to it. She just hasn't. That's all it is, y'all. She just hasn't had the time to think about us. That's fine. We're just not. We're just not that important.
I'll wrench you. I'll give you a wrench so you can put your link in chat.
No, I don't even know how I subscribe. Look,
she doesn't know. She just doesn't know.
I am
the PhD psychologist just isn't aware of how it works. That's all it is.
I'm new here. I'm new. Okay, there's a learning curve.
F's in the chat for us, I guess, because Roxanne
Whatever.
hates us.
This is hostility. I won't stand for it. How do I even? I'm literally looking at it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Subscribe.
I'm
subscribed.
Yeah, it's the button. Hey, everybody, be cool like Dr. Roxanne and hit that subscribe button because you should have done it a while ago.
I can't. It still says I can't.
Whatever. That's what it is.
It's fine. Whatever. I'm done.
In all, Kalasia789 is one of our mods, and she's awesome, and she's been promoting your YouTube this entire time. Awesome. We've got it in there. Make sure, Kalasia, to put my YouTube in there twice as much as hers, though, is what I'm saying. Just make sure to double up on it. We've got still lines are actually full at this moment, so I'm going to try to get through a couple people so we can open up more lines. Let's talk to either Jean. I'm guessing Jean. Pronoun she, her, calling in from Nasally Cats, who wants to ask, what about detransitioners? Jean, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Hello? I'm on speaker. Is that okay? Yes, I can. I am on speaker.
It's kind of crackly. If you can take us off speaker, it would be appreciated. But if that's how it has to be, it's how it has to be.
No, I've got it. You're off speaker now. Is this better?
Awesome. That's so much better, dude. So much better.
Yeah.
Okay, so
my question.
Do you want to? Yeah, I was going to ask. Do you want to expand on your question? Tell us a little bit about what you're thinking.
Sure. So I understand that detransitioners are a very small percentage of trans people, and that most trans people stay transitioned and are much happier. And that of the ones that do detransition, often that is because they're shunned and they face so much stigma and judgment. My question is about that percentage of people who truly did think they were trans or maybe misdiagnosed and then did decide to transition. Is there a space for them? How are they viewed? I know they're often used as weapons against trans people, but if someone is truly a detransitioner and they truly say, okay, I felt I was misdiagnosed, now I'm back in the body that I was assigned at birth or the gender I was assigned at birth, and I feel much better now. Are they treated as someone who's anti-trans? And do they have a space? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. They should not be treated like they are inherently anti-trans. So you already covered the things that I was going to say at the beginning anyway, is that this is a truly, genuinely tiny percentage of the population. And the vast majority of them do so, they detransition because of lack of social support or a hostile social environment based around their trans identity. And so it's hard to judge what's going on there. But say for these hypothetical people out there, which I shouldn't even say hypothetical, for the people who surely exist out there who transition and then they're like, fuck, this isn't working for me. I actually don't like it this way. I'm going to go back. Two things. Number one, that is why a staged process to transition is not only so important, but so encouraged. That is the evidence-based best practice. That is the way that the guidelines are set up, is that you're not just going to walk into the doctor's office and be like, I'm trans, y'all, and they bring out the hedge clippers and start chopping off whatever bits you like. That's just not how it works. It is, months, maybe even years, of slow, methodical, starting with the simplest things, moving to more complex things, with medical transition being the last stages of all of this. And so it's as reversible as possible for as long as possible. But in the event that somebody somehow makes it through years and years of psychological and medical care and gets all the way to the point where they are fully socially, medically, and whatever transitioned, and then at that point they have this horrible realization that they need to go back, that person should absolutely be given space and a voice and dignity. They deserve specialized, careful, mindful, evidence-based medical care exactly the same way as they deserved it all throughout their initial transition and at literally all times in their lives other than that. and they should be taken seriously. They should be cared for. They should be like, those are things that should be given to them forever, period. So their existence, I agree, their existence should not be used as a weapon. Their identity is not automatically anti-trans. They just deserve a different kind of medical care, as lots of individual people do. Roxanne, do you have anything you want to build on that?
Not really. I mean, I think for me, it's that as someone who studies like how we develop an identity and who we are, it's not a linear or a process that has a set start and end point, right? We go through identity exploration all the time. And for some people, that might mean that at one point they truly aligned with feeling like transitioning was correct for them. And maybe later they feel different. Like it's not inherently, I mean, I feel like that's just a part of life is this constant identity exploration and constant kind of change of understanding yourself. And honestly, I think if someone is like brave enough to go through that twice, they probably really are able to understand and identify who they are and what they need. And I think that's really cool, actually. Like if you are able to really be like, no, I want to be this way. This is what's best for me. And now it's not. Great. So many people go through life without actually being able to engage in interoceptive awareness and like figure out what they want and how to, fulfill that identity desire. So
yeah, no, that experience could be harrowing, but like good for you for getting to have the opportunity to safely explore it. And also like interesting case study. You could help a lot of people like by having somebody, research what was going on there and like write it down and be a part of the literature. You can do it anonymously. It's cool to do.
Yeah, I would like to do that because the only experience I have with someone who's detransitioned is the ones that are, being used as weapons. And does that make sense? So yes, it would be interesting to know.
Seeing this,
what the process was like.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Well,
I hope that answers your question because we covered everything I was going to cover in the call within the first 2 seconds. You nailed it. So like that's I hope this was helpful to you and to somebody else listening as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Gene. Take care. Let's keep going because we got, like I said, we already had full lines, and now literally as I clicked drop on Gene, another call initialized. So like we didn't even have a moment in there where there weren't full lines. By the way, we have had to block 21 people who have already been banned trying to call back in and just desperately trying to get on the show, and that's funny to me. We've got let's talk to Cinder, pronouns she and they, calling in all the way from the land of enchantment, Europe, who wants to know what does non-binary look like from a scientific perspective. Lots of people see this as invalid. Like non-binary phobia type of thing. Cinder, you were on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very nervous.
Oh, well, stop it. I'm fucking weird, and Roxanne is very nice.
I know. Well, first, thank you for taking the call, obviously. Before we start, I do have to ask, did the FBI guy call in? Because I missed a couple shows.
He hasn't. He hasn't yet, and I want him to so badly. Roxanne, have you heard about the FBI guy?
No.
I will tell you after this call because it's a wild ride. But yeah, I want that call so fucking bad, dude.
I want to hear it. I want to get.
Anyway, what can we help you with today? Right?
Yes. So this thing came kind of about. So I do consider myself non-binary before anyone asks. That's why I asked.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like a couple people, like the second part of the call screen says, like some people don't really, don't see it, don't think it exists or whatever. And I just had like a couple conversations with people who I don't know, some people who were friends and are now not because of what they said about it, to a person who considers themselves non-binary. And it's just a wild ride like the different arguments on it, and I just want to know what does it look like psychologically. I don't know what Roxanne actually does because I don't know who you are. Sorry, but
nobody
at
does.
least I know.
No one knows.
Yeah,
No one knows what it is.
So like, that's how I like it. Yeah, and I know you're a biologist, which I have seen that the new Sex and Sensibility video is there. I just haven't had the chance to watch yet. So my question might
It
just
dropped
answer
just
itself
before this show.
When I do. I know. I saw the premiere, and then I saw, oh wait, show, go.
Yeah. So you're asking just like
so, yeah.
from a scientific perspective, are you asking like what does the language look like? Or are you asking like what's the root of the question? Are you seeing this one curl, dude? This one guy that
yeah, it's out there.
I can't get it to calm down. I hate it.
It's
I'm
out
not
there.
because I had to turn it off because like this one is way more. I don't even know.
Shit, dude.
With reality, the stream is hanging behind the call thing, so I don't know.
Yeah. Don't pay attention to the stream. It's a bad time.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And I'm grateful that I don't have to. Before I just like, the thing that really started it is an ex-friend who asked me about my pronouns on Discord, and then he said stuff like, "Oh, so you're trans, so you cut your dick off, right?" And I'm like, "Don't say that, dude. That's not okay." And then he went on to say,
surprisingly common, totally inappropriate question, though.
Yeah, no, but he meant the right thing, but said it very weirdly, and it caught me off guard. And then he said stuff like, "If you call yourself non-binary, you're distracting from real gender issues because that doesn't exist. And shouldn't you just say you're a man because you technically are?" And at that point, I was like, "Okay, just read stuff. I'm out because I don't have the knowledge to defend that." But at the same time, I feel like I don't have to have the knowledge to defend that if that's who I am. And then I just got confused, and now I'm here.
Yep. Roxanne, you look like you had something to say first.
Well,
yes, please.
I feel like you and I are gonna have to really tag team this in that nothing that I have a background in would have I don't have any of the neuro background that might give us any evidence into whether non-binary people typically have different, I don't know, biomarkers in brain patterns or anything that would indicate that maybe non-binary people are people who typically I don't know, are more open to experience or I don't know. I don't even know if any of this makes any sense. But what I'm going to say is as a social psychologist, most of the methods that I use to study people's experiences is asking people to tell me about their experiences. So what it looks like for me to know that non-binary people exist is when I have people fill out a survey and there's an option for them to indicate their gender. A handful of people say I'm non-binary, and I say, okay, thank you for telling me that. And that's it. I think this whole obsession with feeling like you have to understand someone fully to respect that that is their experience is ridiculous, because does that mean that a man is saying that women don't exist because he's never experienced being a woman? No, I'm telling you I exist, I'm here, you can see me. Or I don't know what it's like to be Mormon because I've never been Mormon. Am I gonna believe that someone tells me they're Mormon? Yes. I could never be in that same headspace, but I understand that you're telling me that that's your experience and your, how you exist in the world. So I feel this strange preoccupation with I don't understand it, therefore it's not real, is very specific to LGBTQ folks, and I find that very interesting in general. But from the world of social psychology, non-binary people exist because they tell us that they exist, and that's pretty much that.
Yeah, I would say from the perspective that I would bring to it is number one, we can easily see that sex and gender are different. That's pretty settled. We also can easily see that because gender is a social construct, it is necessarily not a binary system. So even if you just pick one, if we say man, right? Garen freaking T, what I have as my concept of the gender of man that I identify with and present and all these things is going to be different than what somebody else has in their construct of man. And if you were to actually take the time to somehow quantify our understanding of these things, like whether it be qualitative data or whatever, of like how, or even quantitative data of like how important is each individual thing. If you were to try to actually build a model of like what man means to me, and then pick a different man, you already are going to have a non-binary system just within the gender of man. And so when we talk about what do non-binary people look like from a scientific perspective, what we're talking about is like acknowledging the fact that this is a social construct, and as such, you have two general categories that are not completely devoid of meaning, but that meaning is very much contextual and very fluid. And there's a lot of people out there that just don't vibe with it. Even like the general kind of understanding of what man and woman means in our culture, it just doesn't click with them and it doesn't work. And so these people, to call them non-binary is a gross oversimplification of something that is very expected, to try to get them to at least exist tangentially to our cultural heuristic of what gender is. It is a way to try to normalize these people within our heads, so that way we can give them some sort of identity from our perspective as opposed to from theirs. And at the end of the day, everybody.
That's a really good point, that like the only reason that like even the term non-binary exists is because we operate in this false binary where like that's the only other way to describe thing that that challenges the norm.
If we were being honest, everybody is non-binary because the binary isn't real. And so like it's just, these are people that just aren't able to gel with the societal norm that they're in, and so they make a new one and we're just like, cool, I'm gonna call you they. And that's the best we can do. And that's hopefully we'll have something better soon, but at risk of then having a million neo-pronouns that nobody can keep up with, that's the best we've got at this moment.
Yeah, that stuff gets bad sometimes. I'm happy that I don't identify with those in a way.
Well, it's if somebody wants to, I think I've met like one person in my entire life that did, and I did my absolute best, and we moved on, and it was all cool. And so like I'm not going to disparage anybody for doing that. Express yourself the way you want to be expressed. But I've yet to even hear of anybody who uses neopronouns who isn't very patient about it and like, hey, I understand. This is just what works for me, and it's going to take time, and that's cool. So like, yeah, if anybody's going to try to dramatically change language and be pushy at the same time, it's who knows, but like whatever.
Yeah, language changes. We're going to have to deal with that at some point. At some point, we're going to have to just say, okay, well, this is what it is now. Who cares? But yeah, I have people who like, they use they, them, and then they also use fey, fair. I don't even know how to use those in a sentence, so I don't even try. But they're very patient with me when I don't.
Exactly, and as long as they're cool with like educating and trying to make everybody understand where they're coming from and why, it's a fascinating exploration into human experience, and that's great.
Yeah, it's cool. Like for me, for example, I am fully okay with being a male, but I just am not a man, and that's also okay, and it should be okay. Like my girlfriend's okay with it, my friends are okay with it. Like I'm not fully out in public yet. I have a couple friends who know, some couple work colleagues, but my online friends are all completely fine with treating me the way I want to be treated, and that's perfect. Except for that one dude who is now not my friend anymore.
For good reason, it seems.
Like, yes, very much so. The way he acted was just not great, and I don't know. Not the point. Kind of the point, not the point. The thing that I wanted to say, like you said, like, ooh, they don't understand it. They don't understand trans or non-binary. But the thing is, he did understand trans. Like his first question, although it was worded weirdly, like, what's in your pants? That's not a cool way to phrase it. But he did say, like, I'm okay with you being trans, just non-binary doesn't exist. And at that point, I was like, why though?
Yeah.
And why do
Yeah.
you feel the need to make me say that? Like, you're not going to change my mind about who I am, because it is who I am. So, like, what's your point here? What are you trying to say to me?
Yep. Yeah, that's fucking gross and unfortunately common. So, like, I don't know what to tell you beyond, sorry, but like at the end of the day, like the science is pretty fucking clear. I'm fortunate. So if you check out, my new sex and gender video, I put a graphic up there that talks about sex and gender, and it happened to be from that NIH Office of Women's Research that Roxanne was talking about a minute ago that is already shutting down. I also, as part of this, was going to recommend, there's a map of gender diverse cultures that I usually share. It's from PBS, and it shows cultures around the world that have diverse gender traditions, that recognize third genders, transgenders, and it's from PBS, which is publicly funded. And I just tried to pull it up, and it's gone. They pulled it down already. So like, just fuck everybody, I guess. But what they can't kill is literally goddamn just textbooks and shit. Check out like pick up a cultural anthropology textbook and beat somebody over the head with it, and maybe you'll get through.
Yeah, I did what you did. I think it was last year or something when you were on with the Godless Engineer. You had this dude called Chuck, his first call, where you were like,
Chuck,
you're disagreeing with the World Health Organization and the doctors and blah, blah, blah. And you just rattled all this stuff down. And I sent him that exact list. I don't think he even read it, but I did send it to him. So I did my part. But yeah,
that's the best you can do.
Him, like, the article from the WHO about sex and gender being different and everything. And he refused to read it. And then there was some weird arguments about, like, I'm saying, like, look, these people are smart. They've studied this their whole life. So maybe we, as like slightly less intelligent, or not even intelligent, less educated people on this specific subject, maybe we should listen to them. And he's like, but maybe because the people are dumber, they have more of a grasp to reality. And I'm like, what? What?
I have heard that before. Especially from theist callers, and they're like, sometimes you can get so smart that you're dumb. And it's like, no. Sorry, it's just that's not how it works. And let me tell you, man, people who stop studying biology in 6th grade, they are usually the most vocal about their opinions about biological science and how it works. So I don't know if the same thing works for psychology, but like that's as a biologist, that is my experience. Yeah.
They're like, I read one thing that Freud said, and now I understand psychology.
I understand you recently earned yet another graduate degree in this field, but I've listened to Joe Rogan, and let me tell you now what's going on. Anyway, Cinder, I appreciate your call. We're gonna jump on to the next one, but thank you so much for calling in and talking to us today.
Hell yeah! Thank you so much for taking the call.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye. It frustrates me, they're talking about like, oh, well, you're trans. Well, what about your dick? What about this and that? There's a lot of people that will associate it. Like, we can explain to we're blue in the face that sex and gender are different things. And it's like, okay, but what about genitals? It's like, did you not hear? And then also, especially that, and then linking in sexuality. I have this talk that I give called Life Lessons from the Lab, where as a part of it, I talk about like history of trans people, like a few important trans people from history that like show that like this. And 2 different occasions, 2 different cities I have given that talk in, and someone approached me and is like, so you talked about that one person that that Roman emperor that was trans, or that one spy that was trans, or whatever. Well, who were they having sex with then? And it's like, why is that the question that you're hung up on? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, I hear a lot of people where they're like, okay, so that person is transitioned, so now do they like men instead of women? And I'm like, why would that be the case? Why would that be the case? Yeah.
And, it's funny. There was one thing like I said, I just released. By the way, everybody, I just released the new Sex and Sensibility video today, so I'll put that in the chat right now. There's that. I'm excited to watch that. I've been promising that for months. I said I would have it done by the end of last year. But I put that out today, and it's an hour and 40 minutes long. And I cut out so much stuff that I wanted to include in that. That video was easily going to be 2.5 hours long, but I cut out so much stuff. And one of the things that I cut out was this story. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but you can look this up if you're watching and you're interested, or I can try to find the resources. Back in 1800s America, I believe it was in Illinois, there was this dude who was intersex. And this is back in the days where we weren't separating sex from gender or from sexuality either. And so this dude is intersex. He has narrow shoulders and wide hips, but also has a penis. And he's suing to try to gain the right to vote because women aren't allowed to vote yet. And so there's this argument where the public officials are saying, yeah, okay, he's not a man or a woman, but he's more man than woman, or he's more woman than man. And so, like, there's this debate about, like, okay, well, he's more female or more male or whatever. And this means the same thing as man and woman. And this means the same thing as sexuality and all this stuff. And so they brought in this doctor to examine this guy. The doctor concludes that he's a man because he has a phallus. And then immediately after the election, dude starts menstruating as well. And so, like, now there's this big uproar. And the most interesting part about this case study is that the evidence for him being a man was that he had a phallus, and that I think he had facial hair, and that he was, like, very outspoken and stuff like this. These were all man things. The evidence for him being a woman was that he enjoyed bright colors, that it was rumored that he also liked men, that he was, you know, maybe homosexual or bisexual, so that made him a woman too, and, like, he enjoyed knitting, and that was a woman thing, and so, like, this. And it's just fascinating to see just how useless thinking becomes when you try to lump these things together as if they're all synonymous and all binary. And so, like, it's, I don't know, there's just one really interesting case study. Like I said, I cut it out of the video because it was just redundant with everything and it was already too long, but it was so cool.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Let me see if I can find, I bet I can find that case study. I'll put it in the chat if I can. But for right now, we're going to move on to a call that I'm going to be real with you. And I'm going to be real with this caller. Let me go and bring you on and just put you here so that I know you can hear me. I'm on the fence as to whether or not this is going to be a troll call. So just know my finger's on the button. The reason why I don't think it is because the question is super common misconceptions about how sex and gender work, and seems to be questioning the concept of gender as a social construct. The reason why I think it probably is a troll call is because the person's name is Schauder, pronouns he, him, calling him from Texas, and it uses the word gender ideology in the call screen. So we'll read the thing. This is what the call is about. We'll see if this person tells me to pray for 3 days. Which is a very common, we got a lot of trolls who for some reason just want to get airtime to tell us to pray for 3 days because we had this one caller who was super obnoxious and kept asking us to do that. It was a whole thing. So this is what it says on the call screen. Since gender ideology says that gender is independent from sex, can a biological woman identify as a trans woman? That's the question in the call screen. We got a lot to cover here. But let's see if this person is legit. Schauder, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today? Can you hear us? So it says you're calling in with the web caller. If your phone is... Yeah, there you go. See? So, what's interesting is that, like, the two things I think are most important is that it's not gender ideology that says sex is different from gender. It's literally just basic logic. And the second thing is that, like, what the fuck is a biological woman? Because sex is different from gender, that doesn't make any sense. So, like, I was willing to, like, give this person, like, a second to, like, really think it out, but they waited on hold for almost an hour to do that. And so, like, I guess we just won't get there with Schauder today.
What a bummer.
Right? I wanted to take that call. I wanted to talk about it, but, like, Trolldar went off real early. Let's talk to Clover. Pronouns he and him, calling in from minuscule Nudibranchs. talking about real tiny sea slugs, y'all. Clover is 14 years old and is calling in to ask, how does gender develop in a person, and how is that development connected or intertwined with sex? Clover, you are on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today? If your phone is asleep,
it's my first time.
Hey, there you
go. Yeah. So this is my first time calling in, like, ever to anything. So
wow.
I'm a little nervous, but
you have nothing to be nervous about.
Yeah,
Roxanne is nice, and I am strange.
Yeah, I've been watching your videos for a long time. I really admire you.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, my yeah. So I was just gonna ask, from a biological perspective, like when a human is developing, how does gender develop in a person biologically? And since people have been associating sex and gender, saying that sex and gender are the same thing for years of millennia now, how are those two actually related? And what is the biological, because you're a biologist, right? So I just wanted to know.
I am. Yeah. So there's a couple things to talk about here. Number one is that, when we separate sex from gender, the reason we do that is because gender is a social construct, not necessarily a biological one. However, that isn't to say that there's absolutely no biological underpinnings or hints of biological reality to be associated with gender. Just like with sexuality, right? Sexuality, the way that sexuality presents itself is highly individualized, really, really variable. And the way that we label and recognize different sexualities is absolutely a cultural thing. And so, you look across history, you'll see different cultures throughout history that sexuality was less about who, what kind of person you were sexually attracted to or even having sex with. It was more about who was doing the penetrating or whatever. You know what I mean? It was more about position. Sexuality is historically associated with socioeconomic status and power more than it is with actual sexual attraction. And gender is indeed the same thing. Historically speaking, gender is more associated with socioeconomic status and power than it is associated with sex. It has a lot to do with, it is a highly individualized and highly variable thing. And so while it does have a biological underpinning, it's really difficult to say this is how XYZ biological marker stands out. So now I'll give you another example of why these are related and expound on this further. When we look at the brain, or even let's start actually with this. Sorry, I'll jump around to it. With homosexuality, we don't know where homosexuality comes from exactly, but there is strong evidence that there's some sort of a genetic component to it. And there are certain brain markers that tend to be associated with it. But that doesn't mean that we have any reason to believe in or any evidence for a single gay brain shape or a gay gene or anything like that, because it's all a little bit more complicated. There appear to be a genetic association because we can see this with twin studies and stuff, but that doesn't rule out hormonal factors, epigenetic factors, environmental factors, whatever. There could be a difference in the sensitive period for sexual imprinting. We don't know what's going on there to paint a full picture. And when we look at structures in the brain, we're like, okay, this is usually larger in homosexuals and heterosexuals. Or when we put homosexual and heterosexual people in a brain scanner, we see these similar patterns. When a gay man looks at a man's face and when a straight woman looks at a man's face, we see these same activation patterns. That allows us to see that there is something biological going on there, but we can't quite get to the point yet, nor may we ever be able to get to the point where we can say, okay, this is the gay thing, the switch that makes you gay or whatever like that. And it's the exact same thing when we talk about trans people or when we talk about gender at all, is that there are certain parts of the brain that are moderately sexually dimorphic, which means that they show a difference between males and females on average. But that isn't to say that there's such thing as a man brain or a woman brain, or even a male or female brain. Brains are highly variable. They vary a lot across populations. There was one massive review study that I actually referenced in my new sex sensibility video where they looked at like 1,400 brains, and they found that these regions where like men tend to look like this and women tend to look like this showed a huge amount of overlap across like different people. And it actually turned out that those changes, those dimorphisms, were neither internally consistent nor even present sometimes. And so like we can look for these trends biologically, where Roxanne is hanging out with her research assistant right now. We can look
People
for these
in the
trends.
chat are asking about, this is Harper, so I'm
Right.
just popping her
Harper. We can look for these trends biologically, and we can say, okay, so here are some things that are associated with gender identity, but we have yet to pin down a single thing, and we may never pin down a single thing that we can say, like, this is how gender develops. We just don't know for sure how that works yet. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah.
I know that was super long-winded, so I hope I covered it without getting too crazy.
No. That was really fun to listen to. Thanks for answering.
Yeah.
I mean,
No
there
worries.
is a huge social component. I don't know if we even want to get into like the socialization of gender and how,
Girl, you know I do.
that happens. I mean, that starts at infancy with the little onesies that babies are getting, that, oh, she's going to be a heartbreaker. Oh, he's going to be the next president, right? Like these ideas about what someone will be as an infant because of their genitalia is forced upon not only them, but the people that are interacting with this child, which creates this reinforcement of, oh, it's a little girl. She's gonna be a great wife someday. Right. So children,
that's kind of why I wanted to like ask about it. I'm sure there's no like, again, like I'm sure there's some like distinction between one's sex and like I don't know. Yeah, I just didn't know whether it was like there was some biological truth behind it, or whether that was just like,
yeah. So just like I like to draw the comparison to sexuality, because just like with sexuality, there's clearly some biological component, some biological underpinning. We are biological things, but we have not found a single like switch for that. And it's looking, the more we look at it, the more it's becoming apparent that it is actually very multidimensional and has a lot of factors going into it, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's meaningless or useless. Most things about your body are that way. But like, that's just part of the beautiful, frustrating reality of biological science in all of its forms. Whether we're talking about biomedical or even, talking about, I don't know how Roxanne feels about it, but I absolutely consider psychology a subfield of biology. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It is.
I'll accept that.
You're studying You're studying what minds do, and minds are the result of brains, and brains is neuroscience, and that's where I study.
You know what? Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Anyway, Clover, I hope that this helps and gives you something to think about, and feel free to keep thinking and keep asking good questions, because your question today is really good. Great place to start.
Thank you. Take
care, Clover.
Bye, Clover.
Have a good day, y'all.
You too.
Bye. Don't tell me what to do. I gotta tell you, your example of babies onesies saying either heartbreaker or president, I fucking hated. And I didn't hate it because of how gross and sexist it was. I hate it because of how fucking real it was.
Yes!
That is absolutely what they are. Fucking, Did you see? Like, you telling me you're fucking you gonna accuse me of pushing gender ideology when you wrap your baby in a thing about like, oh, daddy's gotta protect me from all the boys and all this, like, fuck all the way off.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
That there was a viral onesie that was going around. It was a fucking little baby. I think they're called onesie, baby wrapping. Yeah. It was a wrapping for a baby.
A baby
and it
wrapper.
Said, and it was for little girls, and it said, "I hate my thighs," and like that.
Yes.
Yeah, what
Awful.
the actual fuck? And somebody thought, what kills me isn't that existed. It kills me that somebody that got through the marketing team. Enough
Yeah.
people were like,
No,
yeah, that's what
not
girls
just
do.
the marketing
Let's put that
team,
on a
but
shirt.
then like the merchandiser was like, "Yep, let's carry this. This is a good product."
Yes.
And then
Like,
people
so
bought
many
it.
people. It just
Crazy.
kills me. It just kills me. By the way, people in the chat reminded me that I would have to tell you this very quickly, this story, if it's okay with you. I have a particular creepy troll stalker guy who's on Instagram, and he claims to have known me in some past life. And so this is basically what he's doing. He's going around to like every comment section that features me in any way and trying to convince people of a conspiracy theory that he has about me.
Whacked in the face over
and
here.
yeah, dude. I am while I'm speaking, I'm going to quickly put this in the thing so that I'll put it in the producer chat thing that you and I have access to. If fucking goddamn it, if Arden wants to put it up, this is what this looks like. So this guy's conspiracy about me, this is what he believes, and he believes this wholeheartedly, is that I am an international con man who is secretly a Marxist and a Freemason, and that after being fired from a Christian school for teaching the children that there is no God, I then ran for office to make America Marxist, lost that election, led violent protests across the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, endangering people's lives and blocking highways and all sorts of things, and causing major whatever property damage. And that is why the FBI is looking for me. And that is why I changed my name to Forrest Valkai to evade capture. And now I am scamming people all around the world because I'm an international con man. I am scamming people all around the world by pretending to be an atheist on the internet to make money. And so I hired a real graphic designer and paid real money to make this incredible design, which I just shared with you. If Arden wants to put on the screen too, she is welcome to.
Give me one second.
Thank you so much. So that I told that story on the line, and it got mixed in with this other story about this one time when I was in Ecuador and I had to lie about my name being Tommy in order to get on a boat, which is a whole other thing. So now the story of Tommy Valkai, the legend of international con man Tommy Valkai, man of mystery, sneaking around in all sorts of different countries, scamming people out of their money, turning the children atheist, and spreading Marxism and Freemasonry. That is now the story associated. There it is. Look at that beautiful shit.
That's you.
Yeah, it's exactly me. Thank you very much to Glory Jackson, incredible artist, for making this design. And if you go to valkaimerch.com right now, you can buy that shit on t-shirts and tote bags and mugs. You can get a full color poster print. The merch store that Glazy just posted for me there at Bonfire is my old merch store. They could not handle this design, so I had to get with a new merch company just to sell this. And that merch company is now listed at valkaimerch.com. So go check that out.
Incredible.
That's the story. And so we're asking, I have been begging this guy for months to call into the show and just say this shit on air. It would be so much fun. Because the crazy shit is, like the best crazy shit, some of that's rooted in truth. I did run for office at one point. I was a Freemason at one point. Like, there's some real shit in there. I've attended a bunch of protests and held several protests. Like, maybe, and this guy connected the craziest fucking dots from A to B to unicorn and made this amazing story that I want so badly to share online. I want that dude to call. So I don't know, man. Everybody go to my Instagram, and if you see that guy, just beg him to call, and he will beg you to ask me questions because he doesn't get attention from me, and so he will. Every person who comments, he's like, ask him this. Ask him if he was lying about when he believed in God when he became a Mason. Flip, dude. We've got a bunch more calls left. We've got holy flip, dude. We have so many calls. Let's go. Let's talk to. We got some people waiting for a long time. But I'm sorry because we're gonna do this one instead. Let's talk to John.
the
Pronouns
J
listed as
name.
he. Yeah. Calling in from octagonal kinetics. I don't know. And John wants to know, how do you separate the concept of gender from an amalgamation of personality traits that are more masculine or more feminine? I don't know if that's necessarily a thing. Let's figure it out. John, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
Not bad. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Sweet.
So expound on your question, because I feel like what I've got here doesn't paint the full picture of what you're trying to ask me.
All right. So when we talk about and sorry, I'm actually at work right now, so this might be a pretty short call.
Okay.
But I just wanted to ask you that I watch all your videos. You know.
I'm so sorry.
But in terms of gender, I feel like when we talk about gender, it's more so a discussion about personality traits rather than something that's inherently related to sex.
Right. So, insofar as inherently related to sex, when we talk about personality traits, it's important to remember that, like, and this fucking sucks, but it's the reality of it. Even just the word gender is kind of an oversimplification of several different parts, where you have gender identity versus gender expression versus like cultural expectations surrounding gender as well. And so you're taking all three of those highly ramified structures and putting them together and just calling them gender altogether. So like calling it personality traits is, I would be afraid of saying that is an oversimplification of something that was already highly oversimplified. You know what I'm saying?
I guess.
I love the way, actually,
I feel like
Alyssa in the chat just said it way better than I could. I loved what she just said there. Funny is a personality trait. Feminine is not. So, like, describing someone's personality as masculine or feminine, kind of, it's reductive and it doesn't make a lot of sense.
That being said, I feel like what John's getting at is like there are sets of traits, right, that are deemed to be masculine or feminine. And if you are higher in presenting typically masculine traits, you're seen as manly, right? Things like dominance, aggression, I don't know, whatever else. And women, it's nurturing, caregiving, warmth.
That's what too, but all right, yeah, that's fine.
Those are typically when I talk about like what we mean by like toxic masculinity. It's not men that are toxic. It's an over presence of stereotypically masculine traits like dominance and aggression that don't have the balance of feminine traits, whereby when you are really high in dominance and aggression and you don't have warmth and nurturing and compassion to balance it out, that becomes toxic. Because you are just aggressive and mean. So like I feel like maybe that's kind of what John was getting at. Like it's when you do gender, right? It's a performance that you're doing. It involves showing certain traits. But there's other stuff that it involves doing. What you wear is a good is a way that you signal what your gender is or what you want it to be. How you cut your hair. But it's all based on these kind of stereotypical assumptions of what it is to be manly or feminine.
I guess I could track with that. John, does that make sense to you? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, my thing is the logical conclusion of like feminine traits or masculine traits. I mean, there's no the logical conclusion seems to be just individuality. You know, a person is a certain way, presents themselves a certain way, they like to dress a certain way, they like to act a certain way. When it comes to the biology of a person and like the kinds of medicine, like things that they need to take, corrective procedures, I I just feel like we're trying to adjust the body to the brain rather than accepting who we are or adjusting the brain to the body.
What do you think?
Do you have thoughts for us? I mean, I feel like what you said earlier about like gender is a simplification, right? We have gender identity, which is how you feel. You could feel like a man or a woman, regardless of if your hair is long or short. But then you do certain things to convey that gender to the world because you want to be treated in the way that, you know, that affirms who you are.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like in terms of like adjusting the body to the brain, all the thing. What I think is really important is that like we've already touched on a couple of this, but if I can try to like summarize it all, is that we live in a world where we have these gender norms, these gender expectations that are presented upon us and pushed upon us from birth. In fact, before birth, right? So as long as we are existing, we are living in this world with these expectations, and we look around us and we see what man looks like typically and what woman looks like typically, and we figure out what's comfortable and what works for us, and we build our own concepts of what this gender is for us. Everyone who identifies with a particular gender also sort of defines that thing for themselves as well as they're going. And so as we live gendered lives and have gendered feelings and have gendered experiences, we develop more or less gendered brains along the way. And we have gender specific activation patterns of our brains, and we have gender specific behaviors that come along with that. And so when we put all that together, I wouldn't say that we're trying to like change our body to fit our brains or change our brains to fit our bodies or anything like that. I would just say that we are falling into the exact same kind of cultural norms and behaviors and systems built around the heuristics that we have been establishing and growing from birth in the exact same way that we would with literally any other part of social identity. Because social identity as a whole is a self-identification game. And so, like, if I'm looking around politically and I'm trying to be the best Republican I can be, or I'm looking around religiously and I'm trying to be the best Mormon I can be, or if I'm being whatever, like, it's fundamentally like, it is very different, but it's rooted in the same kind of social identification and social development as saying, you know, I'm going to be more of a man by doing these things that make me feel masculine based on the understanding of masculinity that's been presented to me in the world around me. It's not to say that like being a man is a religious or a political thing. It is to say that like, because identity is a fundamental part of social behavior as a whole, we're going to now build our understanding of our own genders as we navigate a gendered world. Does that track? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then question popped to mind. I also have trouble. I heard an earlier caller today talking about non-binary. I have trouble figuring out non-binary because you can be feminine, you can be masculine, you can be both. How can you be neither?
Because both of those things are social constructs. And so if you just don't align with what culture is presenting you as the stereotype of those things, then you're neither.
Well, also non-binary isn't the absence of masculinity or femininity, right? Non-binary folks sometimes are both masculine and feminine. It's that they don't feel that man or woman or any gender identity can encapsulate their experience. At least that's my understanding from the non-binary people that I've spoken with.
Gender fluidity, yo. Also, Arden put something in the producer chat that I think is erudite and interesting. Yeah. I don't want to read it. Do you want to pop in and say the things? Because you said it better than I'm going to say it.
Yeah, this is just the common response we do on TACIS when people do this, like, shouldn't we just accept our body thing, which is that the evidence for like improving trans people's quality of life is that changing your body to validate your gender is what works. Whereas like the mindset of accept your body is working on a paradigm of like body dysmorphia, where the evidence shows that encouraging those individuals to change their body like worsens their condition. It's the opposite of what the evidence is calling for. Whereas for trans people, changing the body is what's called for. That's all. I don't know if he heard any of that.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I heard all that. And something I'm have to more research on. But it still doesn't quite click to me. I'm open. I'm always open to hearing different viewpoints, listening to people's experiences about this. Like I said, I mean, you said there's studies available. Definitely look into those.
For now.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. I appreciate the call. I'm actually, like I said, I'm at work. I'll just probably get back to it. Forrest, before I go though, do you ever go to the Jinx Aquarium?
I have before. I would again.
Yeah. Sweet. No, it's my favorite place in Tulsa area.
It's righteous.
So.
It is righteous. The zoo's better and cheaper, but like fish are cool, I guess. Anyway, John, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for calling in.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Hi, John.
Strictly speaking, most of the things you see at the zoo are fish because, you know, cladistics and all that. We've got so we've got 5 calls left on the line, and Arden selfishly and cruelly has closed the lines because we're 90 minutes in. We've had packed lines the entire time. So I'm going to go ahead and also just really quickly to the person in the chat, you're in the chat. Nobody wants to debate with you in the chat. Pick up the fucking phone. You've had 90 minutes to call in. We're not hiding behind a timeout button. You're annoying people in the chat. Pick up the phone. Number at the bottom of the screen is 720-619-2288. We will discuss opening lines again in a minute. Calm the fuck down. This isn't your show. This isn't your platform. This isn't your soapbox. Get the fuck over yourself. Holy fuck. I'm bored of... it annoys me when people get all up their own asshole and they're like, I should be allowed to voice my opinion here in this chat about a show that isn't about me.
I've somehow missed those messages incredibly. I've only been like,
you're fine.
Glancing
you're
at the
not
chat.
missing much. You're not missing much. We get one of those every show, and I try to remind people, like, hey, it's a call-in show. If you have an opinion, you can call in, but nobody has to listen to you in the chat. We've got, let's talk for a second, because this was the thing. We were going to see how this one went, and then I was going to pressure Arden to take one more call, and maybe it'll be that idiot. We've got Gohan, no pronouns preferred, it says, calling in from Tiny Xylophones, who is a theist as well, who calls in a lot, and who says their brother is non-binary and has general questions. That's what it says in the thing. Go on. You're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Never had a bad day.
All right. I like to hear it. Forrest, I just got to ask really quick. Based off of what that one guy is saying, it's like you've had a full life and you're like 40 years old. I don't think there's any way anybody could accomplish all that stuff.
I'm flipped, dude. The freaky thing is, like I said, every bit of that conspiracy theory has a grain of truth to it because that's how conspiracy theories work. Like, I have taught at a Christian school before. I was a Freemason before. I have traveled to a few different countries, and I do teach science and everything on the internet. And I did run for office one time, and like every bit of that is almost something that happened, and then right at the end, it takes a wild turn into bullshit, and it's great.
Well,
but I also am 45, so like,
I think you would have to be for all that to be true.
Right? Anyway, Gohan, what is your question? What are you calling about?
So I called in once before for this. I got hung up on, and you know what? That's fine.
Did you reflect on why?
Sorry?
Did you reflect on why?
Yeah, so it was more of like I don't need to. I don't have YouTube pulled up. I know I'm talking to Forrest. Who else am I talking to?
You are talking to Roxanne, a PhD in
Roxanne. Sorry, I forgot your
psychology.
name.
That's all
I
right.
know
No,
you
so
How good does that feel? Be honest with me. How good does that feel?
being a doctor,
well, congrats.
it's doctor actually. No, it feels good.
Well, Miss Dr. Roxanne.
That's me.
I heard you saying earlier something that like applied to this very much was like I don't need to understand something to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't need to understand what it's like to be a woman to believe somebody else is a woman.
Sure thing. That is what I said.
Yeah, long and short of it.
And that's also what Matt said after he hung up on me. I think the difference for me is it's not that I don't understand what it's like to be non-binary, because I don't. I just don't understand what non-binary truly means. I do understand what a woman truly means. I don't understand what non-binary truly means.
Do you understand what woman truly means?
I would take
dead
a
serious.
shot. I mean, yeah. That's a fair question. I would say any human without a Y chromosome.
Okay, so then men with De La Chapelle syndrome who have a penis and testicles are women.
Do they have a Y chromosome?
Nope. De La Chapelle syndrome, it is literally called XX male syndrome. So you are anatomically male, chromosomally female. So are those men actually secretly women?
I wouldn't say they're men. I would say they are women based off their chromosomes.
Even though they are born with a penis and testicles and can sire children and all these things, that all doesn't matter?
No, yeah, that doesn't matter. What matters is your DNA.
Cool.
That's what makes up who you are.
Well, there you all right. Then we agree that some women have penises at least. That's pretty cool. Let's just kind of keep down that. Right. So let's continue down that road then a little bit. You said anybody without a Y chromosome. What about like other chromosomal configurations? You're saying that the Y chromosome is the only thing that definitely always makes someone a woman, someone a man. Is that what I'm hearing?
As far as I know, but you can go ahead and educate me if I'm wrong.
You are, but it's okay. It's because like the major issue here is that what you're doing, not only are you missing out on like how intersex people work, but also you are conflating sex and gender together. So like, let's take the opposite. Let's take the opposite end of it here and say, like, if you say a Y chromosome, you define woman as anybody without a Y chromosome. So then it sounds necessarily like you would define man as anybody with a Y chromosome. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then Swyer syndrome is a great example, which is sometimes also called XY female syndrome. Swyer syndrome is where you have XY chromosomes and you still develop anatomically as a female. So women with Swyer syndrome, they have a vulva, they have a vagina, they have a uterus, they have uterine tubes, they have ovaries. There are plenty of case studies of women with Swyer syndrome getting pregnant and giving birth. So you say that those are actually men.
Yeah, I have no problem saying that.
So even without separating sex from gender, you agree that some women have a penis and some men can get pregnant.
Sure. That's not a problem for me.
Well,
then there you go.
Progress we've ever made. Weirdest progress we've ever made.
There you go.
But like that. So, but that's the thing though, is that like, if you're telling me, regardless of how you're defining these people, men with De La Chapelle syndrome live their lives as men. They have the gender identity of man. You are calling them women, and that's totally whatever. Like, it's not neither here nor there. The point is, they feel like men, dress like men, behave like men, live their whole lives. They could go their whole lives without knowing what their chromosomal configuration is. And women with Swyer syndrome, similarly, may never know that they have Swyer syndrome. They live their whole lives as women, presenting as women, feeling as women, behaving as women. And you're telling me that you have there's this underlying reality here, which you, by the way, can never verify. like you don't check people's chromosomes when you talk to them, right? So like you have no idea what a woman is when you're speaking to one. You don't know if the person you're talking to is a woman or not. You don't know what anything about this person. You only get their presentation, and these people certainly don't know if they're a man or a woman by your definition. So I ask again, do you actually really know what a woman is? Because it sounds like you have a definition, which sucks. Your definition's bad, but like even if we accept it, it still doesn't do anything for you in your actual day-to-day life. And I guarantee you have not compared your definition of woman to any woman you have ever met ever.
Well, that's very close, because my daughter, she had some blood tests when she was in utero. She does have XX chromosomes. So I know she does not have.
So there is exactly one woman in the entire world that you are sure is a woman.
Well, just to point out, you said a second ago, there's no way I've ever done it. So, but I mean, just to prove, yes, it is possible. No,
sure,
like when I meet
sure, it is possible.
Woman, I have no idea. Correct.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. In your one example here was a super specific circumstance, but as I also said a minute ago, you don't check people's chromosomes when you shake their hands. So like every single woman you have ever met, you don't know if they are a woman or not based on your definition. And every single man you have ever met may secretly be a woman based on your definition, and you wouldn't know otherwise. So again, you said, I know generally what a woman is. I don't think you have this bad definition that does nothing for you in the real world. So you can't understand what it means to be a woman, because a lot of women out there are living their lives as men, according to you, and neither you nor they know the difference.
So I would say yes, I would not be able to know for sure, but that doesn't mean I don't know what a woman is if I don't recognize it when I see it. If I have a definition, that means I know.
I mean to say, I didn't say your definition is non-existent. I said your definition is non-functional.
I mean, it very is functional. It helped me with my girl, did it not?
No.
So I found out her chromosomes based off my definition that puts her into a certain category. So how is that not functional?
So, God, I can't be more clear about this. I don't know how I can get this across. When I say functional, what I mean is it doesn't have any utility in your day-to-day life. You have this one specific example where you happen to have a blood test done on your own daughter, which is a reasonable thing to have happen at some point or another, or whatever. But every other person you have ever met or interacted with or even thought of, you can't do it. You don't have that basis. And so you're telling me that you know what it means to be a woman when, by your definition, which I can't stress enough, is a wrong definition, but it doesn't matter. By your definition, there are plenty of women out there that look and feel and act like men, that have no idea that they're actually women, and that you don't know are actually women. And plenty of women out there that aren't actually women, apparently, and that live their lives in this horrible lie as well. And you're telling me you know what it means, even if you don't know what it feels like to be a woman, you know what it means to be a woman. And you don't. You, by your definition here, you don't.
Okay. So, I mean, I understand your points. And I honestly, I do think they're fair. If I was going to talk about something, I was actually going to try to talk about my brother's view on gender, if that's okay. That way I could maybe understand a little bit more. Because I do love my brother. He hasn't talked to me for about since Trump got elected. And it's
have you reflected on why?
Sorry?
Same question as when you said you got hung up on last time you called in. Have you reflected on why?
Yes. But I was wondering maybe if I could get some help. So do you mind if I get into my brother's view of gender and my questions about it, and maybe you guys could help answer?
I mean, sure, man.
Sure. Okay. So he is non-binary. He says he's neither a man or a woman.
And yet you
And
are
I
using he
understand
to
what that
describe
means.
them.
All right, I'll say my brother's name from now on. Chris says
It is so
Chris is not a
bizarre that
man
you
or-
would rather avoid using pronouns altogether than just use a correct pronoun. But continue, I
Well, you
guess.
say correct.
Because why not?
You say correct. I say maybe not. But Chris says Chris
What?
is not a man or a woman. I understand that Chris doesn't feel like Chris enters into either category fully. And I've known that for a while, and I understand that. But Chris always says, like, my brain is not fully a man's brain. I don't like to do everything that men like to do in society. And my question back is, if my name Gohan, if I am born a man, I like to do everything that females like to do in society, but I still identify as a man, what am I? And he tells me that I'm a man because I identify as man. So that means it's not based on any society norms.
No, it's based on self-identification. It is necessarily rooted in self-identity. And so the only way to accurately assess it is to ask someone to report it.
So it's not based on societal norms?
Gender is. Gender identity is not.
See, that's not something I've ever heard before. I don't really know what that is.
Right, and that fucking sucks. Because, like, I'm happy to break it down for you, but, like, the fact is, you just said, you know, your brother isn't speaking to you because they are fundamentally having such a difficult time. Like, and you said you reflected on why. I don't think you did. I think your reflection on why you got hung up with last time was they didn't want to talk to me anymore. They're sensitive. They just couldn't handle the conversation or whatever. And I think your reflection on why your brother isn't speaking to you is probably something along the lines of they're just being emotional. They're just not being rational. They just can't keep up with me. They just don't want to talk to me. They're just being crazy, whatever. Because, like, if you reflected sincerely on why this person who loves you and trusts you and cares about you no longer trusts you with the conversation, it's probably because they think you're an asshole, because you keep treating them like shit and misgendering them and ignoring their existence and asking questions that you could easily just go check. And instead, you're making it their burden to justify their existence to you rather than just listening to what they're saying. You just explained that you had this conversation with them where you were saying, well, what if I feel this way? Can you just call me this? Because then it's not rooted in it. That's not their fucking job to educate you on this. It's your job as a brother to say, hey, man, I don't understand, but I love you and I'm here for you. That's your job. And the fact that you couldn't pull it off is probably why they're not talking to you.
Why do, like, if I did that, I would 100% feel like I'm lying to my brother. Because I don't understand.
Okay, well, then you're a dick.
On something that I don't understand.
Yeah, then you're a dick.
So,
your brother doesn't have to justify their existence to you. Your brother doesn't have to explain why they feel the way they feel. You aren't lying by saying I love you and I support you, unless you are, in which case it's probably a good thing they're not associating with you. You don't have to understand someone to respect them. It's the thing you started this call with. And now you're doing the exact opposite.
If I said that my brother is non-binary, to me that would be a lie because I don't believe it. So I have to believe it in order to say it without lying. That's just
which is dumb. You could very easily explore the science of sex and gender. Like, you're on a show about it right now. We can get into it. You could explore these facts on your own, or you could look for resources about them, or you could talk to other non-binary people. There's plenty of non-binary content creators out there that explain, like, where they're coming from and what they're talking about and how they feel and why they feel that way. You could understand that gender is a highly individualized, personalized experience. and then you could be a better brother. But you're choosing not to do that because it is easier and more comfortable for you to live in the narrow heuristics of your shitty worldview than it is to be there for your sibling.
I've listened to TACIS almost every episode. I've been exploring all of this, and I still haven't crossed the bridge yet to where I could say, I understand what non-binary means. I can call you non-binary without that being a lie.
Right.
I mean, like,
You
when you say you
understand-
don't understand, like, there's definitions of what it is, like where people tell you what it is, and so it seems like your inability to understand is because you've never experienced it. Is that, like, what's the disconnect of not understanding? Like, I don't understand, or, like, I don't know, there's tons of shit that happens that, like, didn't happen to me, but I know it happened. Like, what's the
Dr.
disconnect?
Roxanne, are you a fan of Dragon Ball?
Of what?
Dragon Ball?
Dragon Ball? No, can't say I ever watched
So
that
if
or played
I
that.
ask
Or,
you to if I ask you to call me a Saiyan, you might not know what that is. And if you say I am a Saiyan, since you don't know what that is, that would be a lie.
That's
Except
so
I
fucking
understand that
lazy,
this-
dude.
Okay.
That's
well,
so
can
fucking
you
lazy.
engage the logic with that for us instead of just cursing?
Yes,
and
it's
saying
the
lazy?
exact
Okay.
same. It's the exact same thing as when people say, "Well, why can't I identify as black?" It's just fucking lazy, and it shows you've never
No.
taken the time to seriously
saying-
consider what a social construct is and how it works. Let me ask you this:
No, I'm not-
if man
not
and woman
saying
are
if I
actually like
identify-
concrete terms, if man and woman are actually concrete terms, then can we say that there are definitive masculine and feminine behaviors?
I'm sorry, I'd like to hear Dr. Roxanne's answer before we cut her off.
Okay, sure. Dr. Roxanne.
I don't really understand the example that you gave because I have no idea about anything about Dragon Ball Z, but I mean, I would like to more so hear your answer of my question, which is like, what's the disconnect of you not understanding it when people tell you that they are non-binary? We could give you a textbook definition of what non-binary is, and yet you claim that you don't understand it. So is it because you've never had the experience?
I would say no. It's because I understand the words of the definition. They, like, my brother doesn't feel like he fits into either category of male or female fully. Like, he has a couple of qualities that go into either one, but not any of them fully. So I understand what that means, but to say my brother is not a male, or, like, honestly, I have a whole issue with the idea of gender. I like to use the sexual terms. So to say my brother's not male,
Which is
that's
silly.
not something I believe. I'm sorry if me being more...
I mean, as someone with a
in
PhD
biology
in understanding gender identity, I can't say that, like, we could have, like, a level discussion if you refuse to acknowledge that gender is not a thing, because then we're just not talking about the same concept.
That's where we have a big disconnect, is I don't believe in gender.
It's like trying to talk
Well,
to,
then I think
like,
the
a creationist
disconnect
and they
is not really like it's not like a difference of opinion when one of us, like, is actually an expert in something. It's like saying that I don't know, I have a disconnect with the French chef at my local restaurant because they make a really fucking great sauce that I've never made. It's not a disconnect. It's that I don't have the skills or the knowledge to do it in my kitchen. It doesn't mean that, you know, like, what?
Yeah, it is exactly the same kind of logic as an anti-vaxxer saying, like, I don't know what the M in mRNA stands for, therefore I'm against vaccines. It is the exact same nonsense presented with the exact same mentality to the exact same result, Gohan. And quite frankly, like, I'm happy to break this stuff down for you. I'm not going to sit here and just let you continue to misgender and drag your brother through the mud. Just, like, it's just not appropriate and it's not worth anybody's time. So, like, here's the thing, is that, like, it's very obvious and easy to identify how gender and sex are different, and you can focus on just looking at gender as a fluid concept across time. Even in our culture, even in Western culture, gender traditions and gender norms and gender behaviors have changed an awful lot. Nail polish was invented for men. High heels were invented for men. Powdered wigs were invented for men. Before the 1600s, men used to weep with emotion and faint when they got overexcited. None of these things would be appropriate masculine behavior today because the concept of gender has changed over the course of the past couple of centuries, because gender changes from generation to generation, from culture to culture, sometimes from person to person, sometimes even from day to day, because that's just how the shit works. And if you'd taken the time to seriously consider literally anything that you're bitching about on this call, you would have probably come to that conclusion by yourself. But as is usually the case with your calls, it seems, you are too self-important to get past that wall of assuming that you might be wrong about something that you are not an expert in, and actually taking a step out onto the water to say, like, hey, there's actually more to this that I could be exploring and learning. And so instead, you've alienated a family member and just told someone with a PhD that you don't believe in the thing they have a PhD in. And I don't understand how you can be that consistently arrogant and self-entitled. With that, Gohan, it's been weird as always. I encourage you to actually reflect on why this is happening to you. Why are you being hung up on so often? Why are your family members not wanting to associate with you? There can't be 50 different common denominators, Gohan. There can only be one. And I think that one is you. Think about it, Gohan. Call us back later, or maybe wrong.
Oof.
Yeah, it's a bad time.
Oof.
Yeah. By the by, to the people in chat, you are correct. I could have used the word sibling for that. I personally have met non-binary people that are cool with words like brother and sister. I didn't have any context on that from Gohan. I made sure to stick to they as a pronoun because that seemed most appropriate, but without any other context. I just didn't want to make any major leaps like that. Chris, if you're watching this, your brother's an asshole, and I'm sorry, and you're great, and I wish you all the best. We've got 4 calls left, and then we'll see what happens next. Let's talk to. I'm gonna make this person's been waiting for a really fucking long time. There's 2 people that have been waiting for like 2 hours, and I feel bad, but they're gonna have to wait a little bit longer because we're gonna talk to this person who's been waiting for about an hour. Let's talk to Leon. Pronouns he, him, calling in from tenacious xenothers, which are like armadillos and such. And there's real feisty little guys, who is opposed to the idea of gender as a social construct, rather likes the idea of as a biological construct, like Professor Dave says, and would like to know what we think about this. Leon, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
Hello, Forrest and Roxanne. It's nice to see you. Just to tenacious affairs, I guess, whoever put that. It's TX, so Texas. I'm calling from Texas.
How would anybody know that?
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't me, but
yeah.
Anyway,
Who's Professor Dave, or whatever?
Yeah, so he's a I think he has a chemistry degree. He's a YouTuber. Professor Dave Explains, that's his channel. He makes a lot of videos about many different topics pertaining to science. And he released a video 2 years ago called Let's All Get Past This Confusion About Trans People. I watched it about a year ago, and in the video, he mainly criticizes, anti-trans positions and stuff. But in about the half point of the video, he also makes some criticisms to pro-trans people and in like how to better defend transgenderism. And for the first point, he states that gender isn't a social construct, rather describing it as he says society doesn't turn people trans, society doesn't turn people gay as also. And he says that gender is an incredibly complex neurochemical phenomenon. And so I want to, my goal here is I want to see what the best terminology is, because according to what he says, I feel like describing gender as a social construct makes it seem more like it's not something that occurs naturally. I think gender just occurs naturally. Humans are naturally inclined to have some gender identity. So I just want to see what you think about that. If you think that calling it a social construct is better than, say, perhaps calling it a biological construct or something else.
Okay. I've never seen Professor Dave's video. People have been requesting it to me for a while. I just haven't gotten around to watching it. I don't know Dave. I know he's hosted on this channel a few times. I have nothing against Dave personally because I don't know anything about his stuff. Getting that out of the way first, because I'm not trying to start creator beef. I would say that his statements that society doesn't turn you trans is true. And I would say, because there's actual research demonstrating that you can't be turned gay or trans or anything like that, or straightened out or anything. That conversion therapy is bullshit and conversion ideas are bullshit. I would also say that his statement that gender is this complex thing that like presents in a neurochemical way, yeah, I would say that that's largely true as well. As I said on one of the other calls, the idea of man or woman brains doesn't make any sense. But the idea of developing somewhat gendered brains in response to gendered experiences and gendered feelings and gendered situations does make sense, and that's something that we have evidence for. Also, we have evidence for trans people having neural architecture and activation patterns that are in line with their gender identity rather than their sex assigned at birth. Those are all things that, yes, we cannot nail down. So calling gender biological in that framework, I think, is reasonable. But to say that it is a purely biological construct, I think is indefensible. It is very clearly mainly sociable, both in its construction and also its presentation. Because as we said earlier, gender is a summarization of gender identity, gender expression, and gender norms in your society, all of which, I should say, gender norms in society are extremely fluid. Gender presentation follows along with that in a lot of ways, and gender identity is a highly variable and highly personalized thing. So, to say that that is based on those social norms. So, to say that it's entirely biological, I don't think makes sense. It's also important to point out, I'm being told by a ton of people in chat right now that Professor Dave has actually recanted a lot of those views and said that he's changed his mind on some of that stuff and that I should host with him. Let him know. He's on this show sometimes. I'm sure we would get along. We have similar views on a lot of stuff that I know about. So, a lot of people are saying that he has actually changed his mind on some of those issues anyway. So that's how I would frame it, and that is how, up until recently, when they were legislated to change their minds on things, the NIH and the World Health Organization, who has not, fortunately, the World Health Organization is not under the authority of the Trump administration. The World Health Organization is very clear that gender is a social thing. The NIH is very clear and has been for a long time that gender is a social thing. I have yet to meet a serious scientist who is not understanding that gender is a social thing. I have 5 or 6 textbooks within arm's reach, college textbooks, that explain that why sex and gender are different and why gender is social. Some of them being textbooks that I studied from to get my degrees. So hopefully that helps clear that up.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Does it make sense? Not just the authority of saying these people say this, but does what I said make sense at least is what I'm asking, because I want to make sure I've convinced you and not just told you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm looking to see what makes the most sense in order to defend transgenderism and make sure other people understand that it's not because when you hear social construct, many people I've seen people make this argument. I think it's bullshit, but that, hey, it's a social contract, so gender isn't real. So I just want to make sure that we can try avoiding that confusion.
Yeah, so 2 things. Number 1, if you want to be helpful, stop using the word transgenderism, because it makes it sound like a religion, and a lot of transphobes use it. Just say trans identities or something. The second thing is that I would make sure, if someone's going to say gender is social, therefore it's not real, is the laziest fucking thinking. because there's plenty of other social constructs out there. Race is a social construct, money is a social construct, law is a social construct, marriage is a social construct. There's plenty of social constructs. Just because something is a social construct does not mean exactly. It doesn't mean it's not real, and it doesn't mean that it has no bearing on reality. You can say that money is objectively not a real thing, that it's all just this made up thing that we all agree upon, and you'd be largely correct. However, people still die every day because of the amount of money that they have. So, like, it definitely impacts lives. It definitely has a bearing on reality. It definitely impacts your society, just like, you know, gender identities do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
All right. Well, that's pretty much, yeah, everything makes sense. That's pretty much all I have to ask.
Radical. Awesome. Roxanne, do you have anything you want to add on?
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Leon. I appreciate you waiting for as long as you did.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to see you.
Bye. What a fun call. Let's talk. We're talking about trans advocacy here. Let's talk to this person who's been on the line for over 2 hours.
My God.
Let's talk to Damien. Damien, pronouns he, him, calling in from nipple yeast.
Ooh.
Talking about fungi growing on your areolas, who says, I think trans activists don't make a discussion. Yeast is all around you, Roxanne. Damien says, I think trans activists are dropping the ball in their advocacy because of both internal inconsistency and over-reliance on subjective experiences. I have problems with both of those things. Damien, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
Hey, what's going on? Listen, first of all, I just want to apologize. Like, when I reread that thing, it came off a lot. It doesn't quite represent what it is that I'm trying to say. So we'll start there and just kind of say, I'll say this, like, I'm approaching this really as an advocate. Like, as an ally, in the sense that I think we agree on 99.9% of things. Like, I'm a raging lefty. I'm 100% like on that side. However, I also will say this, I'm approaching this as also a clinician, and also as a confidant and close friend of a person who went through this kind of gender dysphoria and the treatment thereof. So I know that, you know, anecdotal evidence and N equal 1 experiments are the worst types of evidence. But I will say that, like, that offered me certain insights and experiences that really made me pull back and ask questions as a clinician. So I'll start by saying this, that, you know, a friend of mine named Adrian, and by the way, the pronouns that I use are the ones that she wants me to use. When she first came to me and she told me that, she, you know, she felt like a trans man, she had what most people would say was the ideal situation. Everyone around her was supportive. She had a robust community who was going to kind of support her through it. And, you know, they pushed her and they made, they advised her to seek trans affirming or gender affirming psychologists and doctors and everything. And she went through that process for about 6 or 7 years. And by her own admission, she felt like she was miserable the entire time. And the reason why she gives is, as she places it, she says she was supported to death, almost. And again, it's a little dramatic to say that, but I think, again, from her experience and maybe kind of some of my questions was, you know, she also had things like self-harming behavior. She had risk-taking behavior. She had anxiety. She had depression. She had all these things that were kind of framed as secondary symptoms of her kind of a trans, her gender dysphoria. And by her own reporting, she felt that, and even my thinking of it is, I think her dysphoria was a symptom, was secondary to something else, as opposed to being the root cause of all the others. So she kind of went through therapy, and when she went through it, the goal was always, not the goal, let me not say the goal, but the assumption is that she was going to have gender affirming surgery, right? And through conversations and conversations I had with her, you know, that was also her goal. She was like, well, you know, when I asked her, I said, well, you know, when she first told me, I feel like I'm a man, I said, well, tell me what that means to you, right? And when she described it, she goes, oh, I've always wanted to kind of like have a flat, muscular chest. I've always wanted to grow a beard. I've always wanted to have that certain swagger, you know. And what she was describing was, I guess you could say, the performance of masculinity. And again, no one questioned it. Everyone says, yes, this is a trans man. And for many years, she was a trans man. But I think when she realized that it wasn't working, she didn't feel better. She didn't feel like she was getting any closer to a solution or any closer to that kind of homeostasis or that kind of self-affirmation. She began to kind of question what else she could be doing. So she started to have a lot of reflective conversations with herself and also with me, because I'm also a clinician. I also work in healthcare. And I think what I tried to offer her was a safe space to kind of just really explore and articulate and kind of like throw her guts on the slab to figure out what it is that she was feeling. And I think after those conversations, and again, I'm not trying to make myself a hero of the story, but after talking to me and other people, what she realized is that she was never really a trans man. She was just a non-binary, masculine, I guess, woman, right? And she did, by the way, save up money to have surgery. But the surgery she had was breast reduction. I'm sorry, and then can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. I just want to like.
She did all those things. Okay, go ahead.
Sure, that's fine. I just want to summarize here. Just like the whole story you've told us here is that you had a friend who explored her gender identity, thought that maybe she might be a trans man because that's the way she was leaning. She had an amazingly supportive community of people who loved her and accepted her and gave her every opportunity that she needed to explore that. She had doctors and psychologists that were allowing her to explore these things in a staged and measured process to make sure that she could keep her options open while exploring her gender identity. And eventually she came to the conclusion that in fact she was actually she was non-binary and just liked masculinity a little bit more and wasn't actually trans. And so she readjusted her gender presentation to better associate and got some gender affirming care in order to better align her physical body with her gender identity. And now she is happy. That's the summary of the story you just gave me.
That's where it is. Right. So, but the second part of that,
you have just described a success story. I don't understand why this is an issue with anything like this. It sounds to me like the worst thing this person had to go to. First of all, being supported to death. Okay, I can tell you a bazillion trans person that I can tell you about a bazillion trans people that wish they had that problem, right? It sounds to me like the worst thing this person had to deal with was a bunch of well-meaning but maybe a little annoying friends who tried too hard to overcompensate and accept her, and she was made uncomfortable by it. And what an amazing problem to have. You have described a success story. I don't see how this ties back into anybody dropping the ball in advocacy.
And this is where I'm going to tell you is I think because yes, in her circumstances, right, this is an enviable problem to have in a lot of ways. But I think what it revealed to me is I think that there was an overcompensation. I think there was an over-reliance or an over-caring because of the way the medical community and the psychological community dropped the ball when we were talking about sexuality, when we were talking about conversion therapy, when we were talking about all those things. We realized that that it was seen as adversarial and it was seen as hostile to question a person, to push back on a person, to ask that person, is that what, when they say this, is this what they mean, blah, blah, blah. So what she basically said to me was that she wished someone would have. She wished someone would have asked her to really kind of put her thinking to the test, kind of say some things out loud. But I think from her experience, it was just a matter of, she had green lights and open roads the whole way, which again, enviable problem to have. But I think in her situation, and I think in a lot of situations, I think we need to kind of tighten up the ship. Okay, let me back up for a second. I think because I
just want to understand, like, what is the actual problem though? Because like you're saying, like she didn't have. You're saying she didn't have any pushback, and she had this super like. What would you prefer? Would you prefer that, like, at some point during the gender transition process, we just allow people to sit in a room with a transphobe for a while to say some hateful shit just in case it changes their mind? Like, what's the solution?
I think the ultimate goal and the ultimate ultimate takeaway from this was that she had associated sex and gender so tightly that she felt in order to change one, you have to alter the other. So I think when we think about the language, even the language we use, we talk right in the face about how sex and gender are two completely different things. But then when it's time to talk about supporting these people, we start to get kind of wishy-washy and permeable with those two terms. So maybe I'm being a radical
Who's
when
we?
I say this, but I think we, I mean, hell, what is gender-affirming surgery? I mean, think about even that term feels like a contradiction in terms. It feels like a contradiction
No, it
to
doesn't.
say that your gender, well, I feel like if you're going to say, well, what does it take to, if gender is a construct, if gender is a subjective thing that we experience and it's a personal thing, here's the catchphrase. We always say, well, my dick does not make me a man. Excuse me while I go have bottom surgery so I could feel more like a man. You know what I'm saying? That type, again,
No, I don't.
Like,
we associate in our society, today,
right.
we tend to intertwine sex and gender quite a bit. That is not historically how it has been done, but it has been in the modern era. And so, as we talked about earlier, I think we talk about on the show, like the vast majority of gender affirming care is done for cisgender people. Hair plugs, facial reconstruction, breast augmentation, breast reduction, breast removal, talking about whatever you like, lip fillers, talking about cellular butt injections, talking about penis enlargement, talking about Viagra, talking about like puberty blockers. Like all of these things are things that are done for cis people 99 times out of 100. Right. And so like it is because we live in a society that associates gendered behaviors and gendered expectations with physical characteristics that those things happen. And so your friend is living in the same world as you and I, and therefore she's going to have those same associations. And what a wonderful thing that she was able to sort this out under the safe and watchful eye of a psychologist or a psychiatrist and a doctor. Amazing for her that she had that opportunity. And wow, what a good thing that she had friends who were so kind and accepting that they got to the point that they were annoying and actually helped her realize that she had a different opinion than she thought she did. Like, again, overall, nothing about what you're saying necessitates to me a change in like the ally community. If people are being wishy-washy with these terms, they should stop. But like, understanding the difference between sex and gender, and understanding that gender affirming care and like gender transition still involves your physical body. Like, I don't think those are incompatible ideas in any way. Roxanne, do you have anything that you're thinking that like I'm not touching on?
I know this is an exhausting call, honestly. No, I mean, like I think part of what I've been thinking is like, it goes back to what I said. I think it was our first caller of like, to be able to explore your identity is really important and valuable. And for someone to, explore it, hit, okay, I think I'm trans. I want to explore that to its fullest limits. And then be like, maybe that's not fully right for me. And land on a different, more suited identity based on what they've actually come to discover about themselves rather than what the world is telling them is really, really important. Like, everyone should be exploring their identity to the fullest limits. So for someone to, maybe go all the way in your mind and then come back some, I don't think that's bad.
I think maybe I used her story as an anecdote, but just to maybe kind of detach from that. I think the point I'm trying to make is if we want to be advocates for decoupling the concept that, gender should be seen through the filter of anatomy and physiology, and that sex should be seen through the filter of psychology and sociology. I think we need to kind of stand on that business to say, while maybe we've seen these traditionally as inseparable and cannot be decoupled, we need to decouple them. And I think using her, a great story she has, but I think in her words, when the conversation about her having that surgery went from life-saving surgery to cosmetic surgery, or something I want to do because I like the aesthetic, or because I want to see myself a certain way in a certain mirror, as she describes it, it lowered the temperature for her. So again, the point I'm trying to make is I think if we're going to fight, yes, I'm listening.
Damien, two things. Number one, you just mixed up. You got sex and gender backwards. It's neither here nor there. The second thing
that was intentional.
is that
I first crossed those on purpose.
Okay, I misunderstood you.
Right. I was saying.
Then I misunderstood you, and I apologize. But that's not the point. Yeah, I thought I was helping. I apologize. I misunderstood you. The point that I think is really important here is that okay. First of all, sometimes cosmetic surgery is life-threatening or is life-saving surgery. We know this about gender-affirming care as a thing, right? So, like, the second thing is that if this is the worst case scenario here, where this person had an amazing support group and good medical help and then decided to not transition after all, why on earth would you want to change the system for this one patient? That is not how medical science advances. And more importantly, this is a success story. And you're saying, so now we need to rework this so that maybe in the future, other people don't go through the harrowing experience of being supported too much. And meanwhile, the flip side of that is that people are going to fall through the cracks more and lose their lives. So, like, it sounds to me like you've just got like this, you've got an anecdote. And you, as a clinician, as someone who studies science, should know that anecdotes are just anecdotes. And it doesn't really tell you much about clinical guidelines. It certainly doesn't tell you about behavior of people as a whole. How horrible this person's life is. They had so many welcoming and supporting friends and the opportunity to achieve medical or receive medical care. I'm so sorry for them. But like at the end of the day, this is still a good thing you've described. And it's just not worth digging into calling people like inconsistent in their advocacy or they're over like whatever. I know you said you said originally like that's a bit aggressive, but like that's still what it's sounding like, and it sucks. And I don't think it's necessary at all.
No, I'm going to leave it at this. The point I'm trying to make is in this anecdote, which I prefaced by saying I understand that this is not something we hang our hat on. I'm using this as an example of the things that worked. I think we need to lean into. The things that I think slowed the progress or kind of diverted her from the place she needed to be is I think we need to question those things. And the things I identified as working is giving her a non-judgmental space to explore those things. What didn't work was kind of tracking her. And again, maybe I didn't go into the description of some of the support groups she found, some of the assumptions people made about her. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But the reality is
then you as a clinician should explore the literature surrounding those things. And if you think the evidence-based best practices could be better, then you should write about it. But as of right now, you have yet to describe anything to me that sounds unwanted or unwarranted. Like, this all sounds great. So but I will say this, but even the APA website gets a little flippy-floppy and permeable when they differentiate between gender and sex. So what I'm saying you
is
should publish a guideline on communication.
Okay.
Like, I'm sorry, man. It's okay is all I can tell you. Like, yes, I agree with you that there are some people out there that should know better, that conflate sex and gender a little bit more than they should. I've done it before. That's one of the reasons why I remade my sex and gender video, because in an attempt to try to show this, falsity of some of these things, I was unclear. And there were some times where I even just mixed up the words accidentally. And so it just sucks. So I've done it before. Everybody's done it before. Everybody should be corrected. I agree with that. But this anecdote you've given us is not serving the purpose I think you want it to. And to just say people need to be more careful, to be very clear about the difference between sex and gender. Agreed. And there's nothing else to move on there, really.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much for waiting for as long as you did, Damien. I sincerely appreciate that. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Take it easy.
Can I say, as the real trans person here, I've never known a single trans person in my entire fucking life who would ever say that they were supported to death. The opposite in every single case. But okay. That's how she knew she wasn't trans, Arden, is that she was too supported, and she's like, this can't be. I must be non-binary. Oh man.
That was wild.
Yeah.
That was,
We've got,
but also not at all what the question that he wrote was, which was about like trans activists. I don't know. I was at no point did I understand where he was trying to go, quite honestly.
you know, it's funny. This person, you know, was benign in their opinion, as far as I'm concerned, more or relatively, but like, I actually it was the first time I've ever actually like been a little bit of a tattletale and like had to do something. I posted about a talk that I gave at OSU CHS, which I mentioned earlier. I gave a talk for the research colloquium about research and communication guidelines around sex and gender and all these things. And I had this guy comment on my Instagram saying, you know, about how this is all just, you know, fairy tale bullshit and all this stuff. And I was like, hey, dude, just fucking don't take it up with me. This is literally basic science. And he's like, well, in my medical school training, I never learned all this gender bullshit. And I'm like, what? But you should get your money back. What the fuck? Turns out the dude's a fucking pathologist and like has co-founded and runs a pathology lab and is like, yeah, all this woke science crap just really doesn't hold up. And like, actually, and I was like, you fucking take it up with the National Health Institute and the World Health Organization. This is like governing bodies in your area are saying that you're fucking wrong. And he goes on this tangent about how like the NIH and the WHO have lost all their credibility lately, and they're just woke political ideological organizations. They don't even serve science anymore, and like you shouldn't trust them and all stuff. I'm like, can you fucking please start saying that to your patients so they know to leave? And like at the end, what he was saying was so fucking egregious. It was the first time I've ever done this, but I actually called his fucking practice. I looked him up because he has his full fucking name in his bio.
No, people be posting this with their actual name, all of the identifying information.
I typed his name into Google with the word phlebotomist. I found his stuff. And he turns out he co-founded this phlebotomy clinic thing, this lab. But he was not the owner. He wasn't the CEO. He wasn't the board chairman. And so like the first time I've ever done this kind of shit, but I called in, I was like, hey dude, I hate to be this guy, but if he was saying this about literally anything, it would be stupid and dangerous. But the fact that he's also roping in this transphobic nonsense that is bad for your patients, I wouldn't want somebody representing my business that spoke this way, let alone fucking treating me. And like, I just sent screenshots of the things. I was like, if you find this as alarming as I do, please do something about it. Because that's so fucking like, that is malpractice. That is such a shitty thing to be like, listen, I'm going to take care of you as a doctor, but you got to know, like, the largest biomedical research association in the world, bullshit. They're non-credible. They're just not.
Did they get back to you? Did you know if anything happened?
The person I talked to said that it was very alarming and very concerning, and they're going to look into it. But I have not heard anything since then, nor do I expect to. And I'm sure that guy is real upset. But like I said, I don't usually do shit like that. I really don't. But like I am not like the kind of guy like the TikTok people that get real famous. Like this person said something racist. I found their job and report. Like I don't do shit like that.
Yeah.
But in this case, this person's talking about treating patients while also saying the World Health Organization is non-credible because they disagree with him politically. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not gonna tolerate that shit. Absolutely not. And you're a fucking pathologist too. You're studying disease, and you're gonna say like, yeah, but like, you know what? Those certain diseases, I just think it's ideological. No, come on.
Wild.
Somebody comes in with renal failure, right? But like, do they identify as having renal failure? Fuck off. Oh man, we got 2 calls left, and we're gonna talk to these 2 people.
Left.
2 calls left. I'm pretty sure his fucking dumbass comments are still on that post. If anybody wants to go read that crazy shit. Let's talk to Ashley, who's been waiting for 2 hours and 44 fucking minutes.
It's too long.
Who says, Colin, and as if that wasn't bad enough, she fucking lives in Canada. And she says, I watched Forrest's Sex and Sensibility video. Thank you very much. And I realized that religious people might simply reject facts because of their beliefs. How can we help religious people reconsider their views on sex and gender when they reject the facts due to deeply held beliefs? Ashley, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How about you two?
Never had a bad day.
Doing good.
Awesome. So I was just like watching your video and I was like, this is organized everything. This is great. It has all the facts here. No one can really disprove this, I was thinking. Like some people can nitpick, but like no one could really just get rid of it all. Like it's simple there.
Right.
But then I was thinking, I work at this Christian summer camp. It sucks, but I work there. And basically, I was thinking like, how would they react if they saw this video? And they would likely be like, well, I don't agree because of word and book. And they're kind of putting more trust in this book than all the facts. And I'm wondering, like, how do we switch out their perspective in a way that's not like attacking them so they feel like to like attack back?
Ask me the exact same question about evolution and I'll tell you the exact same answer. Fucking flip, dude. I don't know. So I've got a video series called The Light of Evolution, where I just break down the basics of evolutionary biology in a way that literally anybody at any like education level could understand. And I get plenty of Christians saying, this science, there is no evidence here. In the episode where we go over evidence, they tell me that I have no evidence. And so like, yeah, you are explaining the problem, one of the many problems of religion, one of the reasons why we do shows like this, because yeah, people are going to say, I understand that you have all this science here, and all these evil atheistic scientists are telling me that man and woman don't mean what I think they mean, and they aren't the only option. But here in my Bibli, it says God made man and woman, and twernt nobody in this Bible that says anything different, and therefore it's wrong. But I tell you what, though, Roxanne's a PhD psychologist, and she knows how minds and brains work, and she certainly has some amazing advice on how to get through to religious people and convince them about trans and non-binary and gender diverse identities. And she knows also that this is a very important show with lots of people watching. As of this moment, there are 1.3 thousand people watching, and usually these shows over the course of the week get up to about 20 to 30,000 people. So she knows how important this answer is, and that anything less than a perfect and clear answer that thoroughly demonstrates how to fix this would be an embarrassment, not only to her, but her entire profession. So Roxanne, please tell us what's going on and how we can convince people who are religious how to accept gender diverse people.
Here's what I'm going to have to say about this, is that there's lots of... Okay, so my amazing answer is there's lots of research looking at religiosity, entrenched religious beliefs, right? People who tend to be high in religiosity often tend to be high in certain other personality characteristics, or tend to endorse other behavioral systems like gender essentialism and right-wing conservatism, right? There's all these kind of overlapping traits that people tend to have. I don't think it's the endorsement of religion that prevents them from understanding science. I think there's a broader thing that makes people prone to believe in religious whatever, not believe in science, be highly conservative, believe in gender essentialism, right? Like those are kind of facets of like a particular almost like persona, or like, like caricature of a person. And so I don't personally know if it's like religion prevents people from believing in this, or like if there's something that makes them more likely to be religious, and that same thing is also makes them less likely to be able to understand science. Like these people also tend to be high in like a tendency to believe in conspiracy theories, right? It's really, really hard to reason with someone against a conspiracy theory. And I think it's this kind of it's this network of belief systems that reinforce each other that people are inclined to adhere to because of other brain differences. And there is like ample evidence that like there are different neurological patterns, different brain structures that kind of correlate with religiosity and these other belief systems. So like at some level, it's hard to change someone's like fundamental worldview, right? What you're suggesting is like, let's change this person's worldview who believes in this very strict set of core beliefs, and it makes it impossible for them to understand that there's some other way to exist. So yeah, is there a way to change someone's worldview? Not really. I mean, you can try. You can try like slowly over time to almost like like I don't like you slowly feed them information that they might take like a little nibble and be like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then like over time it can just build and build.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really, really hard to change beliefs that are deeply entrenched. And it's also very hard for people to like get over their ego in a way that they can like admit that they're wrong, especially when admitting it would lead to like such a drastic change in like everything they believe. Like we're not talking about someone that doesn't like guacamole and you convince them finally to try guacamole and they're like, man, that shit slaps. Right? We're talking about like asking them to literally deconstruct their entire belief system to endorse a different kind of understanding of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So my expert opinion is good luck.
Yeah. My question would be to that, where it's like, that's true. It's like, it's really hard to kind of convince people, like you're saying, but like, that's like a significant like amount of people, and we can kind of prove that they're wrong. So how do we like move forward?
Forrest, how do we move forward?
I'm sorry. I am talking to, I just typed in the thing. So I was begging Arden to please open one line, and she said she would if you're cool with it. There's somebody that we got here in the chat. Awesome. So we got somebody here in the chat who just got timed out for the day, and I'm hoping that we catch him. Johnny Burke in the chat. Call the fuck in. We are opening a line just for you. Call in and define
Don't even try to call in if you aren't Johnny Burke, please. I will hang up on all of you immediately.
Johnny Burke, call in and define the word woke. I would love to hear from you. The line is open just for you. So with that, you were asking how can we move forward with what? I'm sorry, could you please repeat your question? I was focused on being a dickhole to somebody in the chat.
Oh, don't worry. I was thinking where it's like, yeah, it's very hard to kind of convince these people, right? So, but they represent a large quantity of people, and we can kind of prove that, you know, they're wrong, and that's going to hurt like moving forward into like rights and access to gender affirming care, stuff like that. So how do we move forward where we're able to kind of push past these people, where they're not affecting people's lives anymore?
Yeah, so like the issue that I have, like I said, it's difficult because again, you can ask me the exact same thing, where we have people who want to put the 10 Commandments up in classroom, people who want to teach intelligent design in science class, all these things where it's like, okay, we can objectively prove this. The Kitzmiller versus Dover trial was a long time ago. The Scopes Monkey trial was a long time ago. We can say for sure evolution is a thing that belongs in science class, and we can't be teaching creationism. We're not going to be putting in your religion bullshit in here. And there's still going to be people that are pushing for it because they just can't let go of it. And so, like, that sucks. And I feel like we're in the kind of the same position where, like, the idea here in having these debates, having these discussions, is trying to convince the majority of people just to see that this is the overwhelming academic consensus. This is not just some fringe theory. The fringe theory is the people who say that sex is synonymous and binary and trans people don't exist, and all the people who use the word woke are the fringe. The people who use the words gender ideology are the fringe. They are just a very, very, very loud fringe minority. that tends to sound like they have a lot more sway than they do, when what all they really are is just fucking pseudoscience nut jobs. And so it's the reason why I'm not being cute or funny or provocative when I call transphobes science deniers, the same way that I call creationists, flat earthers, and anti-vaxxers science deniers. The science is there. It's very clear. Every major medical association in the country, all of these major scientific organizations, modern biology textbooks are all aligned in the understanding of what this stuff is. And if you're going to sit here and say, I just don't believe it because I blah, 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 something, make noises that sound like, trans people in women's sports or whatever the fuck. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to take what you're saying seriously. I'm not going to engage with you, and it's not worth anybody's fucking time. So what we need to be doing is getting through to reasonable people, showing them that this is actually how this shit works, and voting in local elections and getting people to understand this stuff at a level that we can actually move forward as a society. But like at a certain point, when you talk about these very, very loud, vocal, extreme minorities on the far side of this, there's an old saying about like, don't play chess with the pigeon, because they're just going to shit all over the board and knock over the pieces and act like they won. It's just not worth your time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair analogy. That makes a lot of sense. And I know my question was really open-ended and hard, so thank you guys for answering it really, really well.
Yeah, it's really hard. I'd say like also just like if you're like having these conversations and you're trying to get through, there's a lot of good social psych research and probably research from other disciplines on like how to break through indoctrinated beliefs or like what's most effective. But again, like these systems are so intertwined. Like I was even just quickly looking to see like there's so much research just in the last 4 years on like the ideological basis of anti-scientific attitudes, effects of conservatism, religiosity, social dominance. Like all of these belief systems are so intertwined and reinforce each other. And so like often you can just justify a belief with something else. So like it's very hard to find a crack in that belief system. But there is some good research on like how to do it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Like sometimes it just feels like an error message that popped in their head. Like I was talking, like last summer, I was like saying blah blah blah, and a point that was like supportive, right? And then it kind of like they error message because it's like, oh no, my book's superior to that. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you so much for waiting for as long as you did, Ashley. I really appreciate it, and thank you for your question. I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, thank you, Forrest. You're responsible for my deconstruction, so I just want to thank you there.
Oh, that's incredibly kind of you. Thank you so much. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Yeah, you as well. Enjoy it. Hopefully that guy is all right.
I hope that person calls in. See you later. Johnny Burke!
Hi, Ashley.
Come out to play!
What is he saying in the chat? What does he want to know?
So basically was saying something about woke ideology and something. I actually, it's been a long time. I haven't seen it anymore, but something it was saying some shit about wokeism and whatever, and was asked to define woke and was just getting shitty with people in the chat. I'd love to see what's going on. Since we opened up the line, we've got people calling in. Most of them look like just troll calls, and they're just being dropped over and over. But like, I flip, dude. I'd take a couple of them as long as they're serious. But who knows? But we are going to talk to this person first. We're going to talk to D, pronoun she, her, calling in from the frozen wasteland of Canada, who wants to talk about sports and wants to say the sport. This is what's written in the thing. The sports debate. Can we talk about that? Should transgender athletes be in a separate group? This is a difficult one for me to talk about, but we'll try. D, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Hi, Forrest. Hi, Dr. Roxanne. I am a trans advocate in my personal life, as well as the leader of the Pride group at work. So advocacy is a very big part of my life. And I was studying to be a high school bio teacher before my parents disowned me and kicked me out, so I didn't get to finish that, but I highly, highly use biological data and evidence to support whenever I'm trying to get my point across. My biggest issue that I've been running into is the sports debate, and the problem is that it's become so big because of the South, as well as the part of Canada that I live in, really likes Trump. So my biggest thing is when I look up the studies and stuff, most of the studies do show that transgender female athletes don't have a biological advantage, but these studies are done after a year or two of HRT. As a trans person myself, I'm all for the validity of a trans person, regardless of what transition they take. What can biology help me to say about this debate, and how can I support my facts and talk about this to people?
Okay.
Isn't it a fact that like Michael Phelps has like an abnormal wingspan that makes him an incredible swimmer? It's like this crazy biological advantage that just like he does not fit in like the normal build of a human. And no one cares that he's like far superior to all these other male swimmers.
Yeah, so the thing is like, so okay, I said at the beginning this is a difficult conversation for me because I genuinely with my whole entire heart do not give a fuck about sports. And I especially don't give a fuck about it. I especially don't give a fuck about a bunch of people who don't watch women's sports pretending like they give a fuck about women's sports, and who've never cared about women's sports, not even that they existed. Like, fucking, if you're gonna sit here and say that you are so fucking upset because you think that someone might be trans or whatever, and oh, this trans person was the best boxer, or this trans person was the best football, whatever, and you're gonna and you don't care about fucking what was her name, Ellen McCarter back in the fucking 1980s, transgender athlete, fucking just dominating everybody, and you don't fucking care about that one, or know that I literally just made that person up. They're not fucking real, and a bunch of people out there didn't know that because you don't give a fuck about women's sports and you need to quit acting like you do. It's so stupid. Anyway, so here's where I'm at with it, dude, is like, just, it's so frustrating to me because I don't give a fuck about sports at all, but I understand they're important to people, and I understand that there's a lot of people out there that really care about the thing. What Roxanne just brought up is so important because the entire concept of sport is that some people are just better at a thing. And like at the end of the day, that's often going to come down to some sort of physiological advantage. It just is. Michael Phelps, yes, can hold his breath for an abnormally long time. His muscles don't fatigue like normal muscles do. He's got very big feet and a very long wingspan that is just not fucking, it's on the far end of the bell curve. And like this person, because he's cis, it doesn't matter that he has all of these like anomalous characteristics, because that's fine. That's part of normal distribution of humans. We all understand how that works. And so he's good at the sport of swimming. Meanwhile, if you were to put him on HRT, nothing would change about these physical characteristics. Nothing would change about the shape of his feet or the length of his arms or the way that his muscles behave or any of those things. And yet now suddenly we're going to pretend like this is some big fucking conflict. Like, it just isn't.
Sorry, Forrest.
And like, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask for a clarification there? You said nothing changes on HRT.
Nothing changes about the fundamental shape of this person's body. Not talking about like nothing changes at all about them in any capacity. I'm talking about like the dude has abnormally large feet. He will remain having abnormally large feet.
Would muscle tone not change? Because I saw that come up in some of the studies, and I just wanted clarification on that.
Potentially, okay. But like the physiology of his muscles being slow to atrophy or slow to like run or to how do you say, not atrophy? Fuck me. Anoxic respiration, anaerobic respiration, lactic acid production. I don't remember the words, but I remember everything associated with the words. That wouldn't change as far as I know. There's no evidence for that. Bone density might change, but the length of the bone isn't gonna. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
It's just the point is, like, if this person...
I think what really bothers me the most about this conversation is that fundamentally these people frame it as like protecting women specifically. Like you never hear anything about trans men in sports. Like
100%.
no one, it's
No.
all, it's particularly like, it's like we're doing this to protect women when people otherwise don't give a fuck at all about women or girls or safety or anything. Their belief about what is threatening is that they believe that it is a like man in disguise. So their issue is not with trans people, their issue is with men. And like that, like no one cares that men have advantages over women in school or in jobs or in career progress or in earning potential, but they somehow care that men are going to have an advantage over women when they play volleyball together. Like it's so disingenuous that it's, for me, very hard to have the conversation because, as you said, Forrest, I literally couldn't care less about sports, but it's just such a disingenuous conversation about desire to keep women safe.
That's my big thing, is that like it is just so fucking dishonest. If you're gonna sit here and be like, blah, 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 you could have somebody that can run a little bit faster. Number one, you're buying into this idea that men are just inherently better than women in all of these capacities. And especially when you have people arguing about fucking trans people competing in like beauty pageants and shit, which have like, you're telling me that men just have a natural advantage in beauty pageants too? Makes perfect fucking sense. Also, as Roxanne pointed out, it's never trans men. It is only and always when they can blend homophobia and sexism into the diarrhea martini of fucking transphobia that we get this fucking conversation. It is just so stupid. And if you're not going to sit here and talk about closing the gender pay gap, you're not going to sit here and talk about unequal opportunities in work. You're not going to talk about unequal opportunities in education. You're not going to talk about like unequal, you're not going to talk about rape culture. You're not going to talk
anything
about
that's actually affecting girls and women's lives.
But god damn it, if a trans person fucking hits a baseball, we're all dead. Like just you're not doing shit. It's like the fucking bathroom debate. It pisses me off so fucking much. Like, oh, so you want a man to put on a dress and go to the bathroom? Okay, so the issue is you think that a man is going to put on a dress and go assault women in the bathroom. Your problem is with cis men being rapists. Your problem isn't with trans people. You just fucking know that cis men are rapists, and so that's what you're going for. And like, that's your problem. And you're not actually doing anything about rape culture. You're not actually doing anything about sexual assault. And you're certainly not doing anything about the fact that trans people across the board, men and women alike, are over 4 times more likely to experience violent assault, aggravated assault, sexual assault, rape, all of these things than any cis person is. So like, you don't give a shit about violence. You don't give a shit about any of this stuff. You just want a reason to demonize trans people, trans women specifically, because you think they're icky. And I wish that people would just grow the fuck up and be like, I just fundamentally don't understand or like these people, so I'm trying to take their rights away. And then we could just all say, okay, fuck you, and we can move on, instead of having a fucking discussion about bone density and biomedical research about shit that doesn't fucking matter. If you're gonna do a bracket, do a ranked thing, do weight classes, do whatever the fuck. I don't care. My big thing is I don't understand why people are willing to sacrifice human rights and dignity for the sake of fucking football. Why is football more important? Why is that the priority? Why are the people playing the game less important than the fucking game? It's a game. It's a goddamn game. Quit it. Like, just, I don't get how it's important. And my biggest thing sorry, I'm so frustrated, but this is, I understand you were in good faith. You're in good faith asking this question. I appreciate it. I'm so frustrated that this conversation has to happen. It's so fucking stupid.
No,
I give it over to a TikTok creator. Well, I'm going to post her video in the chat right now. At Blue Eyed Melody on TikTok, post a video that perfectly summarized my feelings about this, and everybody should click that link and go watch it. Why the fuck do I care about whether they're a trans woman or a cis woman or a tall woman or a black woman? I want women to succeed. I want women to be successful. I want women to compete. I want women to participate. I want women to be equal. Why do I give a fuck what kind of woman she is when she crosses the finish line? I'm just happy that a woman is there because that's fucking new. And it's so fucking stupid to me that we're having to like boil down this serious discussion about like whether or not people should have basic fundamental equality and rights and dignity in our society over how well they can throw a football. It's so dumb. It's so fucking dumb. So check out that link because it's real cool.
Yeah, I agree. The reason I even brought this up for the people in the comments is that, yes, I am from Alberta, and our premier is a big fan of Trump. And unfortunately, she's a biological woman, which even makes it even, or a cis woman, sorry, which makes it worse because it feels so harsh in the climate right now.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is when I go to advocacy events, we open up pools after hours specifically for trans and non-binary people. And we have members come up and tell us that they haven't swam for 20, 25 years because of all this rhetoric. And it breaks my heart because at the bottom of it, it's not even just about sports sometimes. It's about having access to a physical activity in a team setting. And that's what kills me the most, that we have to compromise on another thing. And but no, I
especially
really appreciate both of you on this topic.
Especially in cases like this, where like here in the United States, we're passing laws about trans people in sports now. Like college athletes being trans. There are less than 10 of them in the country. Donald Trump has more rape allegations than there are trans people in sports in this fucking country, and yet we're focused on trans people in sports. Donald Trump has over 3 times more felony convictions than there are trans people in sports, and yet we're worried about trans people in sports. More children are murdered by guns in their public schools every fucking month than there are trans people in sports, and yet we're worried about trans people in fucking sports. There are over 100 times more mass shootings a year in this country. Over 100 times more mass shootings. We often have more mass shootings than we have days every year in this country. That's happened several times. And we're worried about fucking trans people in sports. Shut the fuck up with that noise. I do not take it seriously, and I do not take anyone seriously who makes it a major political issue. If you don't give a fuck about homelessness, hunger, and school shootings first, I'm not going to sit down with you and discuss the serious biomedical considerations over whether or not someone on HRT can hit a fucking golf ball. Who gives half a fuck, you lunatic? D, thank you for bringing this up. I appreciate you. Thank you for your advocacy and your hard work.
Thank you, both of you, so much.
Thanks, Dee.
And Forrest, I hope to catch you on one of your atheist things. I have an interesting biological debate to bring up. So I'll catch you later. And thank you both so much, Dr. Roxanne, and thank you so much, Forrest.
Fine. Catch me in Canada.
Thanks,
I'll be in Ontario and also Calgary, which I think one of those is a province. I'll be in Sarnia, Ontario, and Calgary's in Vancouver, I think.
Calgary's in Alberta.
Alberta. Well, you know what? It's your weird fucking country is not my priority, but I'll be there. Go to valkailabs.com and you can see I'm doing conventions and shit. And one of those I believe is in Alberta. So go check me out there.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, both of you.
Bye. I understand sports are important for some people. I really do. I do not understand how they're important enough to be this big of a deal. Before you close the call screen thing, Arden, Johnny never called in.
What a loser.
Somebody reminded me in the chat what it was. The issue was that all of us woke leftists are quick to call somebody transphobic when they disagree with them. And then someone was like, what the fuck does woke mean? And he was throwing a fit about that. So like, that's what I want. I remember, I wanted to hear, why do you think we call people transphobic when they disagree with us when we say that trans people should have equal rights? Why do you think that might be? And also, what the fuck does woke mean? That was my big one. I really want to talk about that. But while we were waiting for Johnny Burke to call in, we got these are all the calls that didn't make it through, people that tried to call in. What are Jerry Coyne, Steven Pinker, Richard Dawkins, and others getting wrong about trans identity? The fact that they're not keeping up with modern science is what they're getting wrong. What is a woman? I wish we could have taken that call because I can guarantee my definition is better than yours. Let's see here. There's negative consequences if we don't diagnose trans people as mentally ill. What does that mean? Non-binary gender invalidates the left's argument. No, it doesn't. What is a woman again? Right? It says non-binary invalidates the left's argument about gender. That's the whole state. So our argument about gender doesn't make sense if we say gender is non-binary. So whatever. And then finally, can a biological female be a trans woman? Which was the call that was a troll call earlier, calling in under a different name and a different IP address. Whatever. So those were all the people that tried. We had 21 people that were already banned try to call in today, and 125 people got a busy signal. We were popular. We had a great show. Now we can. I'm sorry. I just wanted to read those off, Arden. If you want to close the thing, because I know that costs us money. I just wanted to read those while we were here. Thank you so much. What a show! We covered a lot. It's been an emotional ride. Let me go ahead and move my stupid face. There we go. Sorry, when we do this, I have like the text boxes and the producer chat and everything to cover my dumb face up so that I don't have to be looking at myself. And I have to move all that around when we readjust the frame here. Before we get into things, how are you? What do you think about
my friends is in the chat. I just saw one of my friends. Hey, friend, cool. Jackson.
Women don't have friends.
No, we don't.
Let's talk about $5 from Trayton. Heard somebody say Irish whites were the first slaves in the U.S. and globally whites are a minority. This being used to lessen black slavery. Thoughts? I have as many thoughts about that as the person who said that has thoughts about that, which is zero. There is no thought put into any part of that. That is an impressively ignorant thing to say. Just no, that's not true. Also, what does white mean? Because there was a time when Irish weren't considered white. And there was a time when Italians weren't considered white. And there was a time when Jews weren't considered white. Because whiteness, the concept of whiteness, is built upon white supremacy. What does that mean? It means that white is the only racial category that we define by exclusion. Every other racial category is defined by inclusion. Why was Barack Obama the first black president and not just yet another white president or the first biracial president? It's because if you have any black, you are just black. That's it. Any black ancestry, you're black now. Meanwhile, to be white, you have to be pure, free of all of these other people, all of these other ethnic groups, and anybody else that we deem unworthy of the title of whiteness, which is why Italians and whatnot used to be considered non-white because they were a social pariah and because we just didn't like them as a culture, and we would say, had disparaging shit to say about Italians, and so we called them not white anymore. And then eventually we were like, all right, you guys are cool enough to be in the club now as long as you don't have dark skin. It's so fucking dumb. And to try to lessen black slavery in any capacity, even if there had been people who were more enslaved than black people in this country, even if that was the case, would not lessen the suffering of black people. What a stupid thing to say. So yeah, this is this comment. That person would have had to have genuinely tried really hard to use their brain that little. And that, if anything, is something admirable.
Wowie.
Goodness. Do you want to read this one or should I?
Oh, no. I saw the word tapeworm and Why, Forrest? Okay, the biologist bum says, I study parasites in wildlife and am a parasite conservationist. I'll ensure there are plenty of tapeworms for future generations to love. How amazing.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. We need people like that. Emma Grace brought up mango worms. I think they're fucking horrifying. I hate them. Genuinely terrifying. Oh, dude, look them up.
I don't want to know. Don't tell me to look them up. Don't
One
tell
of the
me to look them
crazy
up.
Yo, when you look
Fine.
up mango
What's it
worms,
called?
mango
Ugh.
worms. Live reaction of Roxanne's face when she sees these fucking things.
No.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no, because it's showing me them in animals.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where you find them. And they're
God.
uncountable. They are uncountable. Every single pore. Imagine it. Every single hair follicle loaded with a worm. Just thousands and millions, and you just uncountable numbers of worms just bulging out of your skin, and you just squeeze them. There's this horrific video of this fucking dog, and they're literally just squeeze random parts of the dog, and every time they squeeze it, just 30 worms burst out of it. It's crazy. Mango worms, man, they freak me right the fuck out. Oh, I hate them.
And
I love
now
them, though.
they freak me out too. Thank you for that. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
dude.
have a nightmare, a vivid nightmare of that tonight.
Yeah. Oh man, they're wild. They're wild things.
Get
Like it couldn't just be like
just I had visions, vivid visions all night.
Kate Chen in the chat, you had fucking like 3 hours to call in, you fucking loser. You could have called in and said that we were all in a bubble and this was the woke mind virus, and we would have talked you through it, but you didn't, because you're just a cowardly crab, a cowardly little crab. I like to rhyme things. $5 from Monkey a Typewriter. Question for Forrest: if cornflakes were developed to repress certain urges, and they were, why is their mascot a giant cock? Good question. Great to have Dr. Felig back. Yeah, did you know about that? About why cornflakes were invented? Yeah, so fun.
No.
This will help in your research. Let me be the one to mansplain this to you. So Dr. Kellogg, the name Kellogg's, Dr. Kellogg, he invented cornflakes because he believed that eating bland food in the morning would prevent people from masturbating. He thought that rich, flavorful foods led to sexual desire, which led to masturbation. And so in order to stop people from masturbating, they should eat cornflakes, which are just bland bullshit. And that's what Monkey Typewriter is referring to there. Really good stuff.
Apparently, that from some things that I've read that I haven't been able to fully verify, that is the same reason why tampon applicators were invented, because the men were concerned that women would enjoy touching themselves so much when inserting a tampon. They were like, we can't have them do this. There's got to be a piece of plastic in between. Isn't that insane? Tell me you never met a woman.
Right. It reminds me of that fucking, there's this bit that was so fucking funny. This guy holds up this, like, it's like this huge rusty pipe, like it's like in a T shape, and it's like wrapped in barbed wire and shit. And he's like, it took years of research, y'all, but we finally invented a more painful IUD. And like now women will be safe. Yeah, dude. There was a really great talk at BajaCon, the Blue Water Atheists and Humanists Association, which, by the way, I will be speaking at again this year in Sarnia, Ontario. And there's this amazing talk about like that, just like the history of like medical science associated with like trying to protect women from orgasms and shit, and like just thoroughly not understanding. Do you know when the clitoris was first mapped, by the way? Like as an organ, when the first time it was actually
like recently,
2005. Yeah. It was an Australian urologist whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head, but she mapped the clitoris for the first time.
I made a video about it. Yeah.
Yeah, literally, if medical training pre 2005, it just didn't have an accurate description of what a fucking clitoris was. And now, while you read that, I will be right back. I'm going to go grab it. I'm going to put on slippers just in case you see my feet on the way out. I'm not trying to give anybody a free show. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, it's just me. It's just me here. What else can I say that'll be entertaining? I feel like in addition to that, there was only like in the last 10 years research that actually mapped nerve endings in the cervix, which is incredible and terrifying. I was saying there was recent research also
I heard you the
that
whole time.
only like that just identified that there are like actually nerves in the cervix, and it's just like cool. We've just been telling you that IUDs are painful.
Yeah,
what?
Helen O'Connell, thank you very much. I think that was the person. Somebody in the chat just said, I ran out of the room really quick because I wanted to grab this refrigerator magnet. This is on my fridge all the time. I'll move it to my face. Do you have one too?
Wait, I gotta
mine's
find
black
my
and
clip
orange.
pillow.
But clip pill, hell yeah!
I don't know where it is.
Mine is black and orange. The bulbs are black, and the crura and head are both, or glands are both orange. Because black and orange is the colors of Oklahoma State University, which is where I did my master's in biomedical sciences. Hell yeah! Look at that guy. I love it.
Look, he's smiling.
I also got Giant Microbe sent me this uterus with eyes. Ain't it cute?
Wow. Look at that.
And look, the ovaries are magnetic. They're attached by magnets because they're not actually, they're suspended by a ligament, but they're not actually attached to ovarian tubes. The fimbriae just
I feel
fimbriae,
like that
fimbriae,
one and
fimbriae.
this one,
Reach.
these are like similar style. They could be friends.
Yeah. It's got this whole situation.
Your uterus pillow thing you've got there, almost every time I'm making a thumbnail, the Photoshop like auto cutout thing includes that because the placement of it in your head, I always have to like manually scrub it out.
Well, you know what? First of all, you should include it. And second of all, it makes me happy to know that I've made your life slightly more difficult.
No problem. I live to please.
Anyway, y'all, this is a complex organ. It's not, everybody thinks it's just this. This is a glands here. It's got crura and it's got bulbs. And you know what's really fucking interesting is that a penis also has a glands, crura, and bulbs. What's interesting about it is that you've got, the bulbs down here are made of corpus spongiosum and the crura are made of corpus cavernosum. In a penis, the glands is also made of corpus spongiosum. In a clitoris, the glands is made of corpus cavernosum. That is the only real structural difference besides shape, is like what tissue makes the glands. How cool is that? If you grabbed this, just grabbed the tip and pulled it, and it just pulled out and became all long, it would be almost the exact same structure as a penis, except for that one tissue change. How wild is that?
I would love to talk about clitorises all day with you guys, but could we read a super chat maybe? That would be great.
I'm waiting. It's her turn to read it. It's her fault.
Am I reading? Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Super Dude says Elon Musk went on CPAC today, high on ketamine and barely able to form a sentence, trying to talk about cutting massively important contracts, but at least we don't have woke anymore. I hate this timeline.
It's a bad time. It's a bad time to be alive, and it's a bad time to be an American.
As long as I'm here, we do have woke.
Yeah. We're going to keep the woke alive. People in the chat are asking for more clit talk, and like I feel like Arden is just
people in chat don't know what they want. Hey, Forrest, listen, I'm the boss.
I feel like you're selfish.
I'm the boss.
No one's arguing that.
I'm selfish.
We're just saying
That's
you're
great.
selfish.
I am selfish. You're right, Forrest. Thank you. And
5
dance monkey.
5 imperial British colonizer dollars from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. Buzz me on Blue Sky or anywhere else if you want queer fantasy book recommendations. I'm always reading more. Well, hell yeah. People who like fantasy novels, go check that out.
Okay. 5 Canadian dollars from Grace5769. Transphobes are just affirming people's genders by trying to control women's bodies and not caring what a man does. Hashtag accidental ally. Hashtag still a bigot. Yeah.
Love that.
Sure.
$10 from Effer. Of course non-binary people exist. I know I'm living evidence I exist. I love that.
Exactly. 5 Canadian dollars from the Queen D. When it comes down to it, it is always about respect. You do not need to understand someone to treat them like a human. Precisely.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Keep telling her. Everybody in the chat, keep telling her. Hashtag clit talk. 10 more. 10 more
it's a great name for something.
British Museum, right? 10 more British Museum dollars from the Fuzzy Logic. I just finished work at 1 a.m. on a Friday night. What a nice bonus to spend it with Forrest and Roxanne and the rest of my parasocial friends from chat. I believe they meant parasocial friends from Clit Talk, but that's just me. I don't know. I'm pushing this. I'm keeping this. The meme will live throughout this. We're going to make this a thing on this channel. We have lots of inside jokes on this channel. This is going to be one of them.
Clit Talk. Okay, $10 from Crystal. My favorite, most grounding thought is that I'm simply an animal, and you, Forrest, have helped engender that in me. Thanks for all you do. Also, hi, Roxanne. I'm looking forward to your new YouTube channel. Thanks.
Good use of the word engender in this particular context. 5 colorful ass Canadian dollars from the Queen D. Just wanted to say, as a trans POC and advocate, the rhetoric right now gets me dismayed, but the line gives me motivation to keep fighting. Well, thank you. If we can be nothing else, we want to be the fucking idiots that you watch to stay sane. That's what we can provide for you.
20 buckaronis from Maud. A little person lore. Okay. Forrest is responsible for me finding the line, which is where I found. Ooh. Is that TACIS? Is that how you guys are saying that?
The Transatlantic Call-In Show, TACIS.
Which hatched me as a trans woman. So, Forrest, it's your fault I'm getting a boob job and FFS in the fall.
What a compliment. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here. 10 more colorful ass dollars from Mistress Olive. Assigned female at birth here. Growing up, kids used to make fun of me for liking boy things. It never made any sense to me because I didn't equate things to being gender exclusive, and nor should you. Yeah, but a lot of people do. I have met people in real life who like won't wear a pink t-shirt, who, you know, I once saw, I was doing, I used to do like science shows and like booths for kids and stuff. I was like making slime for kids and everything. Little boy wanted to put pink glitter in his slime, and the mother like scolded him because that's a girl thing. And I'm just like, fucking fuck you. Like the kid was expressing himself with slime. Let him fucking be slimy. What's wrong with you? Like just we'll get away from that.
Let him be
slimy eventually as a society. Yeah.
All right.
$5 from Monkey at Tiger. Oh, so you. I'm sorry.
Go for it. No, Forrest. Forrest doesn't know anything. They're clearly non-biological women. Cylon, Stepford Wives, The Maid from the Jetsons, # stop robot erasure.
Yep. God. $10 from the Batman 1119. Hi, Dr. Roxanne. I don't know why I gave him that voice. I'm studying sociology and wondering if you, as a social psychologist, had any advice / something you wish for you learned earlier rather than later. No sweat if nothing comes to mind.
Something that I wished I had learned earlier than later is that as a social psychologist, you are actually also a statistician. So if you have a fear of math and numbers and statistics, you better get over that real fucking fast.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Thank you to Brent J in the chat for # Forrest gives a clit. That's fantastic, and I appreciate you being here. $20 from Mr. Boricua 10. The existence of the non-binary and genderqueer communities is the very reason for the term Latinx. I posit that it can be definitely include the intersex community, which is much better than the language structure of Spanish. Huh. Like that.
$5 from the same person. Addendum. I've been informed by other users that Latin seems preferred over Latinx, especially in certain countries. I like it. Keep on.
I didn't know that either.
Or Latin, I don't know.
Yeah. $10. That's not a 5. $10 from Draven Dresden. This is supposed to be a song. Well, he varnished in the depths of Marxist theory and surfaced while decoding Masonic mystery. A campaign for office, but the motives were blurry. Tell me, where in the world is Tommy Valkai? If I knew the actual melody to Where in the World is Carmen San Diego, I would put it to that. But I don't. I don't have it. There's a creator on TikTok that people were tagging. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. There's a creator who has is a slightly bigger following than me. Nope. Whoops. There we go. So I talked about Tommy Valkai in on TikTok, and people were tagging this one person who I guess makes music, and they were saying like this person needs to like make a song out of it. So everybody go to my TikTok and find that comment on that video, I guess, because I'm not finding it right now, and tell that person to make me a song. Because like at the end of the day, if we can get like Tommy Valkai, very, very Vinny, if we can get Tommy Valkai to have a song and then a theme song and then an intro sequence, we get an animator in on this, we can make a whole kid show, y'all. We can make a whole kid show. And it's gonna be great. I'm gonna get like did you ever see the Biggie Smalls mashup with Thomas the Tank Engine? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Let me put that in the chat right now. Motherfuckers come on, motherfuckers come on, motherfuckers come on, motherfuckers come on. If you want to read this, I'll find that and I'll put it in the chat for everyone to enjoy.
All right, $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Sometimes it's like gender crits are so dense they have to be getting together to mess with us as a mass joke. I get that's unlikely, but damn, fellas.
All right, here. I put it in the chat just now. This is Biggie Smalls mashed up with Thomas the Tank Engine. So instead of Tommy the Tank Engine, it'll be Tommy Valkai. And just like this, the beginning of this song, it's such a vibe. If you're gonna do a kid show, that's how to do it. $5 from Soupy Dude. How soupy is he? I prayed for 3 days and God told me that she actually made infinite genders to mess specifically with the people who believe in her. That makes sense. That makes sense.
$4.99 from Sarah Talks Podcast. Forrest, please keep saying the state names the way you do because it's funny. Hashtag GFYJ.
It's Go Fuck Yourself, Jimmy is our Go Fuck Yourself, Jimmy. The guy who runs the channel. Yeah.
I do remember.
You know, I appreciate that. You are one of the few people who believes so. And that's all that matters to me. I can't stop, nor can I be stopped by any means. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Hey, Gohan, your sibling is correct to drop you. You suck. Seriously, just avoid contact with other humans. You're bad and your badness hurts others. Yeah, like Gohan has called a lot.
Yeah, that was
and
rough.
I don't remember any specific. Yeah, I don't remember any specific calls from him. But he never declares pronouns, and he always has something just truly just shitty and brainless to say. And so I don't know, man. Dude needs some serious introspection.
He's had an anti-abortion call before too, so you know.
Of course he has.
That makes
no
sense.
one is surprised. No one is surprised.
That makes sense to me. $5 from Maud. Quote, society says I'm a man, so I guess I'm a man. Every late blooming trans woman to ever live.
$5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Here's the logic. A Saiyan is a cartoon alien. Your sibling is a flesh and blood human being. You are a worthless trash bag of a human. Logic engaged. That was one thing. Like I wanted to dig more into like how that is the exact same dumb shit as like, oh, why can't I identify as black or Asian or whatever? It's like just so stupid. But yeah, we didn't get there, and that's okay.
$9.99 pounds from Chris Graham 55. We're having my twins and naming one of them Forrest. Any evolutionary facts of the monozygotic nature? How do you pronounce that word? Keep up the great work.
No, there is an extra otic in there. Monozygotic is
right. It should be monozygotic, right? Zygotic.
It's like banana. It just never stops. A bunch of cool things. Is that like monozygotic twins might also still not always be identical because they could also have separate placentas. And so you could have monozygotic twins with different placentas. And so they have fundamentally just slight differences in like nutrient distribution and stuff. And so they still end up being non-identical twins. And that's fucking crazy. Also, monozygotic twins, if one of them is gay, much more really high incidence of the other one also being gay. And with fraternal twins, number goes down a lot. But if it's non-twin siblings, it goes down to the standard rate of just like any random person being gay. That's what I was talking about with some pretty strong evidence that there's some sort of genetic component, but we're not quite sure. It's pretty cool, right? It's mine. Sorry. Forrest. $5 from, I don't know what's going on. All right. I'm drunk. This is pure rum. $5 from It's Free IP. I made 2 videos about public domain trans characters and got some comments saying I'll never be a woman. I'm a cis guy. Transphobia affects everyone. My favorite comments, we have Dr. Ben as a trans man, and the amount of people who tell him that he will never be a real woman just make my day. Love it so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You goofed your way right around into being correct.
All right, $10 from Soupy Dude. My cousin cited the DSM-5 to prove gender dysphoria and therefore trans is a mental illness, but also denied the credibility of the APA because they recognize sex and gender as different. Yeah, you can't double dip like that.
It's so funny. We got 10 simp coins from the Storm Chaser Noah. Can you recommend me your most exciting evolution book? I get kind of bogged down if there's not excitement or interesting things in what I'm reading, thinking in advance. No, I fucking can't, because I'm the exact opposite, and like the shit that I read is all for grad school, so it's boring as the day is long. But I can tell you like some cool ones about things like if you read anything about anthropology, it's going to be cool. So like The Creative Spark by Augustin Fuentes or something like that, which is going to talk about human evolution a little bit. What I got here? I'm trying to see if I have anything else cool on hand, because like I read more papers than books anymore for the past several years. I'll get back to you on that. I don't know. Sorry you wasted $10. I don't have anything interesting to say to you. You don't see my ears? That do anything for you? Some hot ear action? That's worth the $10, right?
Okay. $5 from the Raven 200. The people who use woke as a pejorative more often than not can't even say what woke means. I can't take them seriously even if I try.
That's exactly what I wanted that one dude to call in and try to define woke. It is always fucking funny.
Yep.
$5 from the monkey at typewriter. There's no way HRT can overcome the advantage of just luckily drawing the genetics of a Michael Phelps or a Michael Jordan. All the Michaels. Sports isn't about fairness. If it was about fairness, there would be no medals. Like that's exactly.
Literally. Okay. $20 from Darren McAuliffe. The sports call reminded me of when Jay Whittaker was cast as the Doctor. If you didn't care who played him yesterday, you shouldn't care who plays her today. But suddenly everyone cared about Doctor Who overnight.
Fucking shit, dude. Remarkable Creatures by Sean Carroll. I never finished, but I'm pretty sure it's good. I'm still thinking about evolution books that are interesting. You know what I mean? What do we got?
Okay, I'm going to read this.
Yeah, no, I'm on it. $5 from Brian Zoop. I'm with you, Forrest. I don't care about sports either, but doesn't championing this issue give the right more leverage against trans rights overall? Unfortunately. But like that's just more reason for us to try to figure out how to be more vocal about this stuff.
$5 from the Raven 200. The same transphobes who call trans folks predators are the same people who are silent on actual child marriage in our country, especially in churches.
Right.
So true. Literally. And that's why I'm like, you can't say that this is about protecting children, girls, women, when it's not.
Every single time somebody tries to bring up fucking like it's just like, oh, you want these predators around children, we shouldn't be teaching children these fairy tales. I'm like, you are absolutely right. We should not be teaching children fairy tales. We need to keep them away from the predators. That's why you should never bring your children to church. That's exactly why. Because if you're talking about statistics here, if you're talking about like where the actual consistent threat, it's gonna be worship leaders. Any kind of clergy, they're the ones that are more likely to rape your kids. They're the ones that are more likely to fill your kids' heads with fairy tales and bullshit. Those are the predators you should be scared of, not fucking drag queen story hour. $10 from Jackson Casiopo. Probably saying it wrong.
You got it.
When is Roxanne going to admit my Uncle John from Chicago is a way better social psychologist than her? Also, is she still invited on Chewed Gum?
This has context.
Anytime.
Jackson is this has context. Jackson is a friend of mine. John Casiopo is a famous scholar in my field. He's since passed away. But Jackson, he is a social neuroscientist, not a social psychologist. And for that, I am the superior social psychologist.
Sick fucking burn, Jackson. Get it together. Also, I don't know if you heard, but sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Jackson, he's pretty cool. So
I don't think that he would donate $10 to a channel to say something silly to you if he wasn't a cool dude. I am currently doing, so I'm in my last semester of this stupid fucking master's, and I'm doing a neuroanatomy class and like just digging through this stuff, and like it's crazy how much of it I can relate to psychology without actually saying anything meaningful at all in psychology. You know what I mean? Like it's so fucking cool, and I want to study, like, neuropsych sounds so interesting. It sounds so cool, but like I'm not going to pretend like it's the same thing. By the way, I don't know if you heard Arden, but she said you're welcome on Chewed Gum anytime as well.
We chatted about it a little bit before. I couldn't with my job for the last 8 months. Now I can. So yeah, for sure.
We would love to see more of you on the channel.
Yes, bring me. $5 from Punk Metal Tau. Bought a Tommy Valkai shirt. Long live Tommy Valkai.
Buying my dumbass merch is the most punk thing you can do. $10 from the Raven 200. Funny short story. There are Mormons in my area. They get on their script talking to me about God and shit. When my white passing self informed them I'm Native American, they kind of just left. Yep. Yeah, I love asking if a Mormon ever were to approach you, just ask them about black people in general and just see how quickly bad the conversation gets.
$10 from the Batman 1119. There's a worm where the butt looks like a face.
You're talking about a caterpillar. I think is what they're talking about. There is the snake's head caterpillar, which has a different name, but that is the common name. Let me double check. Yeah, if you just look up snakehead caterpillar,
I'm good. I'm gonna stop Googling things that you tell me to
you
look
don't like
up.
Caterpillars? Caterpillars are great.
I'm done.
They're cute.
Done.
Do this one for me. Like we're friends. Just look up snakehead caterpillar. It's a sphinx moth caterpillar, it appears. That's a caterpillar, and that's its butt.
It is cool, but I don't like it. No, I don't like it.
That's what we call Batesian mimicry. When a non-aposematic or harmful species has mimicry that makes it look like an aposematic or harmful species, we call it Batesian mimicry. Or I guess in this case, because it's looking like a snake, technically it would be Mullerian mimicry, which is when it doesn't matter. Well, no, it wouldn't be, because I don't know if they're toxic. It doesn't matter, Roxanne. Quit asking. $10 from Stephen L. I had the coin pinker question. Wasn't a troll call. I support trans rights. I'm just trying to better understand the position. There's so much noise out there on the issue. Well, I appreciate you clarifying, and I definitely appreciate the $10. Yeah, no, those are things usually what somebody will say is like, well, these scientists say you're wrong. And what they don't recognize the fact is that those scientists are part of that very vocal minority that I was talking about. So a couple things to recognize. We've talked about this on the show. Every single major medical and psychological association in the country recognizes that what they're saying is wrong. Modern biology textbooks says what they are saying is wrong. Like basic grappling with the evidence tells you what they're saying is wrong. Especially Jerry Coyne. So Richard Dawkins has been pretty frustrating on this because he's just saying shit that just whatever he fucking thinks. It's just like, oh, there's spectra everywhere except for gender. It's just that's super binary. And it's just whatever he thinks, and it sucks. Jerry Coyne in particular, though, has been very frustrating. I know Richard Dawkins did just publish an article about this. I haven't read it yet, so who knows if maybe I can, say the same thing about him. But like Jerry Coyne, in case you aren't aware, recently published a new thing about like what is a woman and stuff, in which he said that trans people are more likely to be sex offenders because if you look at the proportion of trans people who are already in prison, more of them are there for sex-related crimes than cis people who are already in prison, which is, line for line, the exact same argument. If you change the word trans for black and the word sex for violent, the exact same argument that racists use to say that black people commit more violent crimes because more of them are in prison for violent crimes. The whole 13% of the population is 50% of the violence. That whole dumb shit. That is the exact same fucking argument, and it means the exact same nothing, and you need exactly as few brain cells to fucking make it. And Jerry Coyne is an accomplished and educated and very cool scientist when it comes to things like evolution, and when it comes to most social issues, has been a very cool guy. And now, when it comes to sex and gender, has just decided to go full fucking red pill and disappoint the shit out of everybody who knows what data bias is. So, like, that's why I would say that they are wrong in these issues, because they are just not saying anything that falls in line with the academic consensus in these areas. They're saying shit that is very clearly either wholly out of date or just genuine fucking nonsense. And they're saying it to their massive audiences who are buying it because they're trusted public intellectuals, and they're trusted for a reason. And now they are betraying that trust by saying things that are just so fucking inappropriate and thoughtless, and that sucks. So that is why.
What is SGD currency? 5 of something from Max V.
Southern Guatemalan dongs.
Sure. I made the mistake of Googling mango worms while eating. I hate you, Tommy Valkai. You've done it again.
Yep. I've got a whole video on my channel if you want to go watch my tier list of parasites. We rank them. And they're bad. There's some people don't appreciate the horrible things enough. $5 from Ryan from Ryan Hall. Forrest, parasite's the most successful classification of life on Earth, right? I've heard that before. I don't know if that's a true statement, but it sounds like it might be, but I don't know. Let me double check. That's maybe.
5 from Ian Roche. When empathy fails, could the benefits of human outliers, genetic and otherwise, be used to convince people to be more inclusive? Hashtag Tommy Valkai.
What?
I don't know.
What was it?
It was when empathy fails, could the benefits of human outliers, like genetic outliers, be used to convince people to be more inclusive? I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like that gets into like, these people are worthy only if they give us something that we can use to our advantage.
Yeah, that's it. I appreciate the spirit of the question. However, I would warn against any kind of argument that is arguing for the utility of a human being, because that gets into eugenics real fast. Also, I just Googled a little bit just to see if there's anything talking about parasites that way. I couldn't find anything. I would say that parasitism is definitely one of the most successful life strategies, for sure. That I don't think is arguable. As far as being the most successful, I don't know if there's any. I don't think you could say that for sure. It sounds like it might be a thing to argue, but like I couldn't say that. $10 from JamNick06. No joke. My fraternity pledge name in college was Tape, because I'm skinny. You've got a tapeworm and are only on the outside because you are slightly bigger than any tapeworm. Anyway, see you at Free Flow. Hell yeah. And I will be at Free Flow. Go to valkailabs.com, and on the events section there, you can see I'm going to be at Free Flow in Florida. I'm going to be in Kansas City. I'm going to be at the We Can Reason conference. I'm doing tours in Borneo. By the by, you can still sign up for my trips in Borneo. I'm going to put that in the chat.
Where is, what part of Florida is free flow? Oh, Orlando. I'm going to message you about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, $5 from, I think this is the same person, JamNick06. In 2023, I was demoted at work and lost approximately $25K per year because someone was offended by me saying clitoris. Hashtag clit talk. That is outrageous.
It is still to this day a problem to teach, especially specifically female anatomy in medical schools, even because people get upset when you talk about a clitoris, when you talk about a cervix, when you talk about it, people get all red in the face and itchy. Everybody does, and it is still a problem in even medical schools where we have to be careful and like dance around topics and shit, and it fucking sucks. I just put in the chat my link there where it says Trova Trip. You can sign up and go with me to Malaysia. We're going for 2 weeks this June, and we're going to see fruit bats and proboscis monkeys and sun bears and orangutans, and more importantly than just seeing these things, more importantly than just seeing these things, we're going to be going to conservation centers. So we're going to do like river tours and jungle tours and cave tours, and then also go to conservation centers to learn about wildlife rehabilitation in these areas, so we can learn about the evolution and conservation of all these fucking awesome animals. So if you want to spend $3,000 and take an amazing once-in-a-lifetime adventure with me, you can go to Malaysia with me this summer and go see some really cool animals.
There you go.
$10 from Tammy B. Thank you very much.
$10 from Nicole Daniels. Hey, everyone, just wanted to thank you all for getting me through my classes. Not a fan of chemistry, but I get why biology.
Oh, no. She died.
Am I Gucci?
Yeah, no, you did for a second.
You're back, though.
I think I'm back. Did we hear it?
It took Jesus 3 days. It took her 3 seconds. So who's the real God here?
I don't know. Did we hear me? Do I need to read it again? Can we see it?
Read it again.
Oh my God. $10 from Nicole Daniels. Hey, everyone. Just wanted to thank you all for getting me through my classes. Not a fan of chemistry, but I get why biology is fun. Hoping to one day join the medical field. Wish me luck.
Nice. You'll do great. $20 from Joshua King. Context: I moved for this job and have no backup. Single parent. Big risk. Hopefully big rewards.
Yeah. $5 from Stephanie Helms. The problem with most conversations about trans folks in athletics is that our presence is an annoyance to everyone. When it got political, we all lost.
It's, you know what? That last sentence is the entire summary of the problem around, like, when we talk about trans people, when we talk about same-sex marriage, when we talk about climate change, when it gets political, we all lose. Like, at the end of the day, this is about human rights and dignity. It's about progress. It's about science. And when it gets political, we all lose. $5 from the Crystal B. No joke. I thought Tommy Valkai was Forrest's sibling that also changed their last name in solidarity. Fantastic. If only.
$10 from the Raven 200. Forrest, what's your favorite what the fuck evolution fact? Mine's everything about the Babirusa. Totally drilled by natural selection. Jimmy, go one-on-one with the Undertaker and get choke slammed through a table. Okay.
He'd probably.
So what's your favorite what the fuck evolution fact?
I would say the fact that, like, we like to pretend like we're so fucking special. You know what I mean? With our undifferentiated genital and anal openings. But at the end of the day, mammals were fucking monotremes first, right? We all had cloacas. Even now, as development demonstrates evolutionary past, we have cloacas around 4 weeks. You don't have a separate, you have a single urogenital opening surrounded by cloacal folds. And it isn't until 6 weeks that you even have 2 separate fucking holes. And at the end of the day, platypuses and echidnas, they are factory default settings for mammals. We are the weird ones. We are the weird ones that have a separate urethra and anus. And I think that we need to be a little bit less fucking pompous about it. I think we need to get down off our high horses and remember that monotremes are the purest of all mammals because they are untainted. Think about that.
There you go. This one's yours.
I forgot it was mine. $5 from Sage. As an NB with an unaccepting brother, I just want to thank you for how you handled the call with Gohan. Correcting the pronouns meant a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate you tuning in. Happy to be of service.
$5 from Corey Springer. I still can't believe I was subscribed to Roxanne's channel before Roxanne was subscribed to the line, aka Clit Talk. I am sorry. It's a new account. I'm definitely subscribed from my other actual, just like personal YouTube account, but that is my bad.
I'm not getting around it.
I will own
We're not
it.
getting
I
around
will
it.
own it. And then when I finally was subscribed and posted in the chat, I was in all caps, and then I got reprimanded for yapping in all caps. Can't win.
Nice.
I was like, I'm here.
Nice.
I'm finally here. I subscribed. And they're like, no caps.
I appreciate everyone in the chat who is recognizing and appreciating my untainted joke. $10 from Draven Dresden. I think I'm on a Jehovah's Witness watch list after deconverting 4 of them after they showed up at my door to convert me. They no longer show up anywhere I've lived, nor where I currently lived. Yeah. They'll keep track, y'all.
$5 from Soupy Dude. Parasitism is certainly one of the most successful strategies. Just look at the White House.
Yeah. President Musk is doing a great job. $20 from Brent J. If only DEI is bad, people could actually make a valid argument why their position makes sense. Dr. Roxanne, what's your favorite food? Forrest, how can you make the good doctor disgusted by her favorite food?
No. Okay, and then
What
I'm
is your
not going to
favorite food?
say what I was going to... I was going to say sushi, but like which you could so easily get me disgusted by. But when I say sushi, like I'm really, really, really picky by like fish quality because I'm from Hawaii. So I grew up very spoiled by fresh fish. But you could, I could very easily disgust myself because the fresh fish that I grew up with is like fresh off the boat, not flash frozen. To do whatever that does. So like I'm aware that there's like stuff happening in that. So you don't have to disgust me. I'm good.
Right. So while we're here disgusting you, I'm gonna put this I'll put it in the producer chat, and if Arden, if you wouldn't mind throwing this up on the screen, that'd be cool. Tapeworms are found in raw fish, we love tapeworms here on the line. Everybody loves tapeworms. And here's some traditional Japanese artwork of a man having a tapeworm pulled out of his butt. How great is that?
See it.
Give me a second. Give me a second. I gotta get.
Oh no! I see it in the chat. No.
Isn't that great?
I want to die.
Oh, look at that!
No. Wait. There we go.
No.
So it's a bit grainy. Yeah. Tapeworms, y'all. They're a real thing, and they're found in fish quite a bit.
That's gonna be me.
By the by, you're talking about whatever flash freezing whatever flash freezing do. What flash freezing does is it kills tapeworm eggs and stuff.
Right. So when I'm eating my fresh caught fish,
the fresher it is, the riskier it is. Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, crazy.
With that, it's been a great show. Dr. Roxanne, I appreciate you spending the day with us, hanging out, talking about sex and gender, letting me gross you out. It's always a pleasure having you as a guest.
I'm so happy to be here and see all the images.
Yeah. This is why we're friends.
No, but
you
bring
fun. Academic credibility and good discussions. I bring fun facts about worms. That's what biologist friends are for.
That's what gender is really about. The man has the worms, the woman has the credibility.
We've nailed it. On that high note, it's been a great show. Thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to our mods for moderating the chat. Thank you to Stephanie Helms for being our amazing call screener. Thank you to all of our callers, even the ones that sucked. Thank you to all the people in chat, even the ones that sucked. Thank you to Faya Halo for doing the timestamps. And thank Arden for producing. Thank Roxanne for hosting. Thank you for watching. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye!